Ceres held a flower wreath and recalled a distant memory filled with warmth and affection. Standing before several women, he struggled to express his feelings while the memory continued unfolding around him. Suddenly, Ceres awoke in bed and realized the scene had only been a dream from long ago. A troubled expression crossed his face as memories of the past lingered in his mind. Looking outside, Ceres reflected on the passing years and recognized that the cherished moment had happened a decade earlier. Ceres, the magic swordsman of the Guiding Light Party, reflected on the long journey that led his group to defeat the Demon Lord. A warm smile crossed his face as thoughts of Shizuko and the others filled his mind. While heading downstairs, he hurried toward the gathering place, hoping to avoid causing trouble for the party leader. Moments later, Ceres found the hero and the other members waiting for him inside. Instead of praise, an unexpected decision awaited. The hero coldly removed Ceres from the party, leaving him stunned and speechless. Ceres calmly accepted the party's decision, having sensed this outcome long before the meeting began. Behind the hero's impressive reputation, he had noticed a serious flaw that threatened the group's future. Despite his talent and charisma, Zect often acted selfishly and ignored the concerns of others. His obsession with women grew worse over time, leading him to chase personal desires without restraint. Because Zect placed those desires above friendship and responsibility, Ceres understood why the party had reached this breaking point. Zect claimed Ceres lacked the ability needed for a great hero's party and declared that he no longer belonged with them. Trying to soften the blow, the hero acted friendly and insisted their relationship would remain unchanged, despite the expulsion. Mel supported the decision, arguing that Ceres would only become a burden and face danger if he continued traveling with them. Observing her expensive necklace, Ceres suspected Zect had influenced her opinion through gifts. Memories of their long friendship resurfaced, yet the hero's smug expression made it clear that Ceres had been completely replaced. Zect mockingly suggested that Ceres return home or join a weaker party, treating him as if he were no longer useful. Rather than arguing, Ceres reflected on the situation and realized the hero had misunderstood his relationship with Mel from the start. Accepting the outcome, he decided there was no reason to fight back. A memory surfaced of Ceres honestly warning Zect about his behavior, hoping their friendship would keep the party united. That friendship finally came to an end as Mel quietly bid farewell, leaving Ceres to walk away from the group alone. Ceres accepted the expulsion and wished the party well. After a brief farewell, he left without showing anger. Walking through the city, he reflected on his concern for the group, which came from a protective feeling rather than affection. Then he recalled a secret hidden from everyone. Ceres remembered his previous life as a middle-aged man with a family, whose memories still guided his actions. Ceres admitted that memories from his previous life had shaped his unusual preferences in this world. While walking through town, he reflected on how differently society viewed age in adulthood. The local customs frustrated him, especially when mature women were treated as old despite their youth. Remembering his former life as a 42-year-old man, he found it impossible to see teenagers romantically. With that thought settled, Ceres prepared to leave the city and return to his hometown. After leaving the party, Ceres visited a slave merchant and was welcomed inside. The merchant recognized him as a former hero, party member, and learned that he had become an ordinary adventurer. Ignoring the expensive selections, Ceres asked to see the female slaves available for purchase. He explained that he wanted a reasonably priced woman to help with household duties. Understanding the request, the merchant led Ceres toward a separate section that housed servants suited for domestic work. Ceres entered the holding area and was disturbed by the sight of women confined in cramped cages. While looking around, he suddenly noticed a familiar face among the slaves and froze in disbelief. Shock spread across the room as Ceres recognized the woman and called out to her. Shizuko recognized him as well, leaving both stunned by the unexpected reunion. Memories resurfaced immediately, reminding Ceres that Shizuko had once been his first love. Ceres learned that the slave he had found was Shizuko, the mother of Zect, the hero who had expelled him. When he asked the price, the merchant offered her for a surprisingly small amount. The explanation angered Ceres, as Shizuko was being undervalued because of her age and past hardships. Ignoring the merchant's judgment, he purchased her and arranged proper care. After receiving new clothes, Shizuko joined Ceres, embarrassed but grateful to leave her captivity behind. Shizuko apologized for causing trouble and felt ashamed that Ceres had spent money to buy her freedom. The merchant completed the paperwork and officially transferred ownership to Ceres. With the transaction finished, Shizuko was released from the shop and left with him. Ceres brought her to a clothing store so she could replace her worn outfit. After changing, Shizuko appeared far more comfortable, while Ceres quietly ensured she would be treated with dignity from then on. Then Shizuko nervously showed her new appearance and waited for Ceres' reaction. Wanting to celebrate her freedom, Ceres offered her a snack while they rested together. Overwhelmed by gratitude, Shizuko bowed deeply and promised to serve him faithfully. Ceres quickly stopped her, but Shizuko insisted that fulfilling her duties was natural. Unable to hold back her emotions, she broke into tears, touched by the kindness he had shown her. After calming down, Shizuko prepared to explain the reason behind her tears. Ceres tried to comfort her, though he quickly realized his usual approach felt inappropriate. While listening, he reflected on how much he cared about Shizuko and her well-being. Then Shizuko revealed the painful truth. Her husband had sold her into slavery. The revelation shocked Ceres. Suspecting Zek's family was involved, he began piecing together the reason behind her suffering. Years of reckless spending on gambling, alcohol, and women drained Shizuko's family wealth until almost nothing remained. Concerned about their future, she confronted her husband and accepted his promise to change. Trusting his words, Shizuko followed him into town, only to discover that he had arranged to sell her into slavery. Listening quietly, Ceres learned that Zekt had consistently supported his father over her. Looking back, Shizuko concluded that wealth merely amplified flaws that had already existed within Zekt. A childhood memory resurfaced as Ceres recalled Zekt mocking Shizuko for her age and worth. Sitting beside her, he reflected on those words and how unfairly society judged older women. Shizuko admitted she still felt anger, though she accepted that nothing could change the past. Dark humor slipped into her thoughts as she imagined the consequences awaiting those responsible. Seeing her apologize for being an older woman, Ceres gently dismissed the idea and reassured her instead. Relief finally returned to Shizuko's face as she realized her painful ordeal had come to an end. Watching her smile, Ceres quietly admired her beauty and rejected the idea that she was old. Memories flooded back of the woman who had comforted him through difficult times and inspired him to help others. Her kindness and warmth had always made her stand out among everyone in the village. With complete sincerity, Ceres thanked Shizuko and expressed how much he respected her as a person. Feeling grateful for her rescue, Shizuko offered to prepare a meal and help however she could. Meanwhile, Ceres assumed she still viewed him as the young boy from their village days. Remembering her status, Shizuko asked whether there was anything he wanted from her first. A serious thought crossed Ceres' mind as he considered her question. Rather than treating her as a servant, he asked Shizuko to see him as an equal and someone she could trust deeply. Surprise spread across Shizuko's face as she struggled to understand what Ceres truly meant. Embarrassment quickly followed, and she insisted that someone her age could never suit a young man like him. Without hesitation, Ceres reaffirmed that his feelings were genuine. Standing before her, he reminded Shizuko of the confession he had made years earlier as a child. A new realization struck her then, as she noticed how much Ceres had grown and changed over the years. Trying to discourage him, Shizuko suggested that many younger women would make better partners than her. With a laugh, Ceres pointed out that those women were already gone, leaving her argument unconvincing. Rather than backing down, he continued pressing his feelings and waited for her response. Flustered by his sincerity, Shizuko offered friendship instead of the relationship he desired. Accepting her answer for the moment, Ceres thanked her and welcomed the small step forward. Shizuko tried to express her gratitude, but Ceres gently took her hand and walked beside her. A quiet warmth settled between them as both shared sincere smiles for the first time that day. Together they left the marketplace behind, and Ceres began looking forward to a new chapter with Shizuko. Later, their hands remained intertwined, reflecting the trust that had grown between them and hinting at a deeper bond ahead. Shizuko slept quietly as morning light entered the room. After everything that had happened, exhaustion finally allowed her mind to rest. Beside her, Ceres remained awake. Seeing her peaceful expression eased some of his worries about her condition. The previous night's pain still weighed heavily on her. Gradually, Shizuko opened her eyes. Her gaze shifted toward Ceres as awareness slowly returned. Their hands stayed linked on the bed. A calm morning followed, bringing both of them a brief moment of comfort. Ceres pulled away in embarrassment after noticing their joined hands. Shizuko quickly eased the awkward moment. Remembering his kindness during her breakdown, Shizuko felt grateful toward Ceres. After leaving the room, they walked through town. Ceres planned to visit the guild after breakfast. At a restaurant, Shizuko enjoyed a meal she had rarely experienced before. Her worries gradually faded. Good food and Ceres' company made the morning far more pleasant. While eating, Ceres admitted he preferred Shizuko's cooking. His words brought a smile to her face. Shizuko happily agreed to cook for him whenever she could. The promise pleased Ceres. As breakfast continued, Ceres reflected on her many talents beyond cooking. Memories of his former companions surfaced, yet none seemed as dependable or mature as Shizuko. Finishing his drink, Ceres felt at ease. Her presence brought him comfort without draining his energy. Breakfast ended with both of them enjoying a peaceful conversation. Shizuko seemed far more cheerful than before. Soon afterward, Ceres brought her to the Adventurers Guild to register and form a new party. The receptionist confirmed that Shizuko would be joining him as a party member. Hearing this, the receptionist hesitated and questioned whether Shizuko was suitable for the role. Rather than feeling offended, Shizuko reacted calmly. Her relaxed attitude left Ceres unsure how to respond. The receptionist agreed to continue the registration process. Ceres remained curious about Shizuko's past. To his surprise, Shizuko revealed that she had once been an adventurer before her marriage. Since few people knew about it, the guild needed to verify her identity through old records. While waiting, Ceres and Shizuko stood quietly near the counter. Suddenly, the guildmaster rushed into the room. His reaction suggested he immediately recognized Shizuko. The guildmaster hurried over and immediately apologized for the receptionist's behavior. Shizuko accepted his apology with a smile. Recognizing her from years ago, he welcomed her return. Shizuko explained that she had simply been given another chance. Ceres watched the exchange, realizing Shizuko was far more respected than he expected. Without hesitation, the guildmaster approved her request and praised her former achievements. Curious about her reputation, Ceres listened closely as the guildmaster revealed that Shizuko had once been a legendary healer. Shizuko finally revealed her past. To Ceres' shock, she had once been an S-rank adventurer. The revelation left him stunned. He could hardly believe someone so skilled had ended up as a slave. After reviewing her records, the guild agreed to restore her rank, though not immediately to its former level. Before leaving, the receptionist sincerely apologized. Shizuko accepted without holding a grudge. Soon afterward, the receptionist returned with several quest documents and presented them to Ceres. Reviewing the available quests, Ceres searched for a suitable job. While trying to absorb everything he had learned about Shizuko, he selected a difficult earthworm hunt. Shizuko immediately offered to accompany him. Concerned for her safety, Ceres agreed only after she promised not to fight recklessly. With the quest decided, Shizuko headed off to prepare food for their journey. As they walked, Ceres praised her abilities. Shizuko then revealed she had once adventured alongside the mothers of his former companions. Shizuko recalled her former party, a group of talented women who had always treated her kindly. Their reputation attracted constant attention, yet the team remained united until age led them onto different paths. Curious, Ceres asked how someone as capable as Shizuko had become a slave, despite her strength. Shizuko revealed that her downfall began when someone she trusted betrayed her without warning. Remembering the betrayal, she jokingly imagined confronting Zector again, leaving Ceres uneasy beside her. Reaching the hunting area, Shizuko suggested taking a lunch break before starting the quest. She proudly offered the meal she had prepared for the journey. After tasting it, Ceres praised the food. The homemade meal reminded him of a warmth he rarely experienced. Although he insisted he could feed himself, the empty container showed how much he had enjoyed it. With lunch finished, Ceres stood up and turned his attention toward the earthworm hunt ahead. After reaching the target area, Ceres confirmed they had found the earthworm's territory. Moments later, the massive monster emerged from the ground. Ceres immediately told Shizuko to stay back. Dodging its attack, he rushed forward and tested the creature's speed with a quick strike. Drawing on wind magic, Ceres enhanced his blade and launched a stronger attack. The earthworm roared furiously as the battle intensified. But Ceres remained focused and prepared for the next exchange. Ceres pressed the attack, striking the earthworm repeatedly as he searched for an opening. A powerful wind enhanced/cut across the monster's body, forcing it backward. Believing the battle was nearly over, Ceres lowered his guard for a moment. Shizuko suddenly warned him. Reacting instantly, Ceres avoided a sharp spike erupting from behind. The ground shattered apart as a second creature emerged. The hunt had been far more dangerous than expected. The newly emerged monster unleashed a powerful attack, forcing Ceres to prepare for another dangerous battle. Before the strike could reach them, Shizuko stepped forward and erected a protective barrier. Ceres stared in shock. He had never expected her to intervene so suddenly. Shizuko explained that the creature was an advanced earthworm and far more dangerous than the first one. Understanding the threat, Ceres immediately cast an ice spell. Massive walls of frost surged forward to contain the monster. Using the ice wall as cover, Ceres charged straight toward the advanced earthworm. Leaping high into the air, He raised his sword and aimed for a decisive strike. The attack landed cleanly, cutting through the monster and stopping its movements. With the battle over, the massive creature collapsed onto the ground. Ceres watched carefully to ensure it was truly defeated. Satisfied at last, he collected the monster's heads and stored them in his item pouch as proof of completion. Returning to the guild, Ceres submitted both monster heads for assessment, shocking the staff. After inspecting the trophies, the guild master struggled to believe Ceres had defeated such a dangerous creature. Ceres gave a simple explanation, leaving the guild master speechless. Once the reward was paid, Ceres reminded Shizuko that she had promised to stay back during the fight. Shizuko lowered her head and admitted her mistake. She had only stepped in because she feared Ceres might be hurt. Ceres gently explained that he could take care of himself and no longer needed constant protection. Walking through town, he promised to protect Shizuko instead, whenever danger appeared. His words deeply moved her. As they continued together, Shizuko felt a growing sense of happiness and trust. Shizuko stood alone in her room, reflecting on the time Ceres asked her to pretend to be his girlfriend until he found someone he truly loved. As the memory resurfaced, she realized the arrangement no longer felt as simple as it once had. Thoughts of Ceres filled her mind, believing his actions came from loneliness. Elsewhere, Ceres returned to the mansion carrying a neatly wrapped gift in his hands. Holding the present carefully, he smiled to himself and hoped Shizuko would be pleased with what he had prepared for her. Ceres returned after finishing his work and quickly visited Shizuko. A bright smile appeared on her face, making him happy to see her reaction. Delight filled Ceres as he felt his effort had been worthwhile. Watching her gentle expression, he admired her kindness and warmth. Captivated once again, Ceres enjoyed the peaceful moment while growing even closer to Shizuko. Shizuko became embarrassed when Ceres continued praising her beauty. Rather than agreeing with her doubts, Ceres reassured her and reminded her that she was still beautiful. His sincere words touched Shizuko, leaving her unable to hide her happiness. Although she laughed it off, Shizuko still viewed their relationship as a temporary arrangement. Stepping closer, Ceres called her name softly while carrying a gentle smile. Ceres surprised Shizuko by presenting an enormous bouquet of roses. Stunned by the unexpected gift, she asked if the flowers were truly meant for her. A heartfelt smile spread across Shizuko's face as she gratefully accepted them. Not stopping there, Ceres revealed a cake he had prepared for the occasion. Shizuko suggested saving the dessert until after dinner, while Ceres remembered he still had one more gift to give. While talking with Shizuko, Ceres recalled a phrase she often used when he and Zect were children. Later, the two took a peaceful walk together through the city at night. Shizuko thanked Ceres sincerely, touched by everything he had done for her that day. Confused by her gratitude, Ceres admitted he did not see the occasion as anything special. After a brief pause, he revealed one final gift and asked Shizuko to open it. Opening the final gift, Shizuko discovered a beautiful necklace and immediately realized its special meaning. Unease filled her heart as she remembered that such a gift symbolized deep romantic feelings in her world. Despite her hesitation, Ceres calmly showed that he understood exactly what the necklace represented. Shizuko worried that accepting it might lead to regret for him in the future, making her reluctant to respond. Standing before her, Ceres sincerely confessed his feelings. Shocked by his seriousness, Shizuko could only stare at him in silence. Shizuko tried to reject Ceres's confession, believing someone like her could never be worthy of his love. Without hesitation, Ceres declared that she was perfect to him and wished to stay by her side forever. His unwavering sincerity left Shizuko overwhelmed as she searched his face for any sign of doubt. Tears formed in her eyes while she worried about the future and whether he might regret this choice. Ceres embraced her firmly and revealed she was the first person he had ever truly loved, deepening her emotions. Overcome with emotion, Shizuko accepted Ceres's confession and embraced him in return. Afterward, she carefully put on the necklace he had given her. A bright smile appeared as she proudly showed the gift, hoping he would like how it looked on her. Seeing her happiness, Ceres felt certain he had made the right choice. Later that night, Shizuko stood beneath the shower, unable to calm the excitement and emotions lingering in her heart. While showering, Shizuko reflected on her decision and realized there was no turning back after accepting Ceres's feelings. The necklace reminded her that his confession had been sincere from the beginning. Memories of her unhappy marriage surfaced, making Ceres's kindness feel even more meaningful. She recalled how he had cherished her since childhood and often dreamed of a future together. Standing beneath the flowing water, Shizuko finally accepted that Ceres had always meant every word he said. Remembering Ceres's childhood, Shizuko realized she had mistaken his feelings for simple loneliness. As she reflected further, she finally accepted that his affection had always been genuine. Thoughts of the night ahead made her nervous, knowing their relationship had truly changed. Doubt soon appeared as she worried about her age and whether she could meet his expectations. Trying to ease her concerns, Shizuko imagined a younger version of herself and quietly laughed at the thought. After finishing her shower, Shizuko decided not to keep Ceres waiting any longer. Wrapped in a towel, she entered the room and informed him that the bath was free. Caught off guard by her appearance, Ceres struggled to hide his nervousness as silence filled the room. Taking a seat nearby, Shizuko accepted that their relationship had reached a point where neither wished to turn back. Shizuko lay silently, her heart pounding as she waited for Ceres in the dim room. A distant memory surfaced. Maruna's smiling face haunted her thoughts, drawing out guilt and hesitation. Ceres approached cautiously. Shizuko, nervous yet resolute, requested tenderness, her eyes revealing a complex vulnerability. Their closeness intensified. Inexperience showed on both sides, yet neither pulled away from the growing tension. Breaths quickened. Their connection deepened through a series of hesitant but meaningful touches, guided by trust. Ceres held her close, guiding the moment with unexpected confidence that caught Shizuko off guard. She responded to his sincerity, her guarded heart slowly softening beneath his attentive gaze. Though flustered, Shizuko allowed herself to be vulnerable, uncertain how to handle his focused attention. Ceres moved gently, his touch deliberate, seeking to understand her and ensure she felt cared for. Emotion swelled within her as she realized he was giving everything just to make her happy. Ceres moved closer, and Shizuko felt sensations she hadn't experienced before, her breath catching. His gestures became bolder, and despite hesitation, she didn't stop him as her body reacted. The moment felt overwhelming. Unused to the attention, she struggled between embarrassment and growing acceptance. Emotion welled up. Being desired so openly awakened something long buried deep within her. As Ceres prepared to continue, Shizuko met his gaze, her heart beating faster with anticipation. Fingers intertwined, she closed her eyes, letting quiet emotion settle in the stillness between them. A wave of sensation broke through restraint. Physical closeness intensified the bond they hesitated to name. Movements grew more deliberate. Neither resisted the closeness as their connection deepened under the weight of shared longing. Embraces tightened. Their bodies remained locked, not just in desire, but in something unspoken yet mutual. Overwhelmed by rising tension, he called her name, releasing more than just energy, but something deeply buried inside. Overwhelmed by sensation, she trembled, her body reacting with intensity she hadn't anticipated. Exhaustion lingered in the air, yet the quiet between them held something unresolved. Taking initiative, she shifted roles, now seeking connection on her own terms. Movements became deliberate. Her expression reflected both focus and growing emotional vulnerability. Within her thoughts, certainty formed this bond had become something she could no longer live without. Morning light filtered through the windows as she slowly stirred, piecing together fragments of memory. Awake now, she turned to find him beside her, warmth still lingering between them. Realization set in. She sat up, unsure how long she had slept. His calm expression softened her nerves, though his words left her flustered and embarrassed. Silence followed until one reached for the sheet's responsibility, waiting beyond their shared moment. A playful suggestion broke the calm, and their closeness quietly resumed beneath the morning light. Later, dressed and composed, she spoke with faint exhaustion while he offered a light-hearted apology. She expressed gratitude through a tired smile, while he reflected awkwardly on his own eagerness. To ease the mood, he presented a heartfelt meal, its charm reflected in her smile. They sat together again, letting quiet comfort replace tension as they shared a simple breakfast. While they shared a quiet meal, she offered unwavering support for whatever path he would choose. In his thoughts, a peaceful future with her felt like an ideal worth pursuing. Yet complications loomed. Taking that path might cause tension with others connected to his past. She proposed visiting her old home, hinting at unfinished matters she was ready to confront. He hesitated, unsure of her intent, but knew better than to ask for details. He expressed a quiet wish to return to Jamuna village and live a peaceful life. She agreed, sharing the same desire and hoping to reconnect with familiar friends from the past. At the village, they observed Haruka, now devoted entirely to her husband's restaurant duties. Sayo remained burdened by endless chores, stuck in a demanding household with little recognition. Misaki, too, continued her quiet routine, managing tasks while her husband left her unnoticed. She quietly acknowledged how deeply their friends' marriages had fallen into disrepair. He smiled faintly, sensing something left unsaid behind her calm voice. Though uncertain about his purpose, he looked forward to arriving in the village. As the day passed, light-hearted thoughts filled the air once more. Zekt was shocked to hear their funds had vanished, confusion spreading among his companions. They speculated nervously, uncertain if Ceres had abandoned them, or if something else had happened. Seeking answers, the party visited the guild, where they learned the church hadn't sent any money. At the church, a priest calmly explained the issue. Zect had failed to submit the necessary paperwork. Baffled, Zect stared in disbelief, completely unaware such formalities even existed or were his responsibility. The priest explained that Zect needed to submit records of spending and accomplishments to receive funds. Everyone denied filling such forms, yet the documents somehow still had Zekt's signature on them. It was revealed that Ceres had been handling the paperwork under Zekt's name without telling him. A past memory returned Ceres casually asked for signatures without clarifying their importance or purpose. Lacking proper documents, Zect reluctantly accepted a small stipend, barely covering their group's monthly necessities. Zect assigned Mel to handle future paperwork, as the church wouldn't provide support without documentation. Despite her hesitation, Mel accepted the task. Though the pile of forms overwhelmed her instantly, she protested, demanding to be excused from other chores if burdened with this new responsibility. Zect agreed reluctantly, allowing Mel to focus solely on paperwork while the others managed camp life. Meanwhile, Zect complained about the food, clearly missing the days when Ceres handled everything quietly. After Zect criticized the food, tensions rose as everyone shifted blame and refused to take over cooking. Despite the bickering, all three women longed for Ceres's meals, each craving a different favorite dish. Zect suggested eating Ceres's food in the city, only to realize it's only served in luxury spots. A few days later, the group arrived in town, exhausted and visibly worn down by travel. Zect reflected on their decline: no money, no hygiene, realizing they couldn't keep going like this any longer. Zect realized even their hair had fallen into disarray, something Ceres once managed without complaint. In frustration, he suggested going to the church for support, but Maria immediately rejected the idea. Faced with resistance, Zect backed down while Mel proposed earning money directly through guild work. Regret sank in deeper. Ceres had handled every responsibility they now struggled to understand or perform. Haunted by failure, Zect stood in silence, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. In high spirits, the woman clung to Ceres, confident in their plans to earn money together. Each morning, Ceres patiently washed and dried her hair with care, using a special cleansing potion. Such gentle devotion stunned her. Most husbands wouldn't do half as much for their wives. Elsewhere, the hero's father mocked his son for foolishly casting out someone so capable and kind. The group vented their frustrations, still bitter over Zekt's arrogance and lack of gratitude towards Ceres. Ceres prepared breakfast with a smile, his kindness shining through even during routine morning tasks. Even when someone was sick, he showed concern. Unlike Zekt, who ignored their condition entirely, wanting to make her happy, Ceres cooked and cared for her, bringing joy to her days. Their nights were warm, their days peaceful. His gentle nature made every moment feel fulfilling. In a heartbeat, she'd choose to save Ceres, no hesitation. His worth far outshone the hero's. Shizuko found peace beside Ceres, wrapped in warmth, knowing she belonged completely to him. Out in the forest, Ceres stood victorious among slain beasts, proving his strength in silence. Used to survival, he explained how hunting became necessary after losing support from the hero's party. Being a magic warrior left him without aid, forcing him to handle every expense alone. Despite fighting alongside heroes, he completed odd jobs just to survive unrecognized, but never bitter, as she comforted him. Shizuko acknowledged the weight of the burdens he'd quietly carried alone. Ceres recalled slaying wyverns and dragons, his strength developed through constant struggle and harsh necessity. Despite his skills, he was relegated to the sidelines, never granted the power others received freely. To Shizuko, Ceres's strength rivaled even legendary heroes. His humility only made his value clearer. After submitting their report, a guild receptionist unexpectedly halted Ceres, requesting he wait for something important. Ceres learned he was still listed under the hero party despite forming a new one. The receptionist explained she had only created a subgroup within the main hero registry. Although she hadn't told Zekt, she reassured them the arrangement wouldn't affect their operations. An official breakdown confirmed Ceres as the leader of a separate unit under Light of Hope. Their membership ensured continued privileges, prompting Shizuko to question her new status with amusement. Shizuko's affiliation was clarified. She officially belonged to the separate force under Ceres's command. As recognition of his strength, Ceres received the prestigious title of Dragon Slayer from the guild. Shizuko, curious, asked if any other party members had achieved the same feat as Ceres. Only Ceres had slain dragons. Zekt and Lyda merely faced demi-dragons and wyverns. The receptionist froze upon realizing Shizuko was not just a member but Zekt's own mother. The receptionist panicked upon learning Shizuko was Zekt's mother, but Shizuko calmly clarified her current role. Registry records listed her as Ceres' slave, a fact she embraced with romantic affection. Confused and overwhelmed, the receptionist turned to Ceres, asking for a clear explanation of the situation. Anger surfaced as she denounced Zect, blaming him for past injustices and calling him an enemy. Finally composed, she offered Ceres and Shizuko a proposal, hinting at something more to come. Ceres was surprised when Shizuko asked if he wanted to enter a guild marriage with her. Embarrassed, she hesitated, unsure if such a formal step was right for someone her age. The receptionist explained the registry an official bond through the guild to manage shared affairs. Ceres compared it to a family registry and confidently offered to proceed with the marriage. Still blushing, Shizuko questioned his certainty, concerned about their age gap and the formality involved. Ceres confessed he had fallen for Shizuko first, reassuring her with sincere, unwavering warmth. Smiling beside him, Shizuko accepted their future together with grace and a touch of affection. Becoming his legal wife brought her joy, while Ceres responded with quiet happiness. Although the guild charged extra fees, they completed the registry and received their symbolic rings. With hands joined and rings exchanged, their marriage was officially sealed before the guild. The guild erupted in applause as the receptionist cheered loudly to congratulate the newlyweds. Ceres and Shizuko walked down the aisle together, surrounded by joyful well-wishers and friendly teasing. Standing proudly, Ceres raised his voice, inviting everyone to drink and celebrate without restraint. The receptionist announced the festivities were sponsored by the married couple, raising mugs with enthusiasm. As laughter echoed around her, Shizuko smiled deep down. She truly couldn't feel happier. Shizuko remembered her promise and vowed to fulfill it upon returning to the village. They had once pledged unity, sharing every sorrow and joy as one. Now surrounded by 3 more wives, she trusted Ceres would manage just fine. Ceres and Shizuko arrived in Jamura village, surrounded by peaceful homes and gentle countryside. He reflected on his upbringing, recalling how the villagers raised him after losing his parents. Their journey led them to Zector, the very man who once sold Shizuko into slavery. At a familiar house, Ceres met the village chief, who greeted him with surprise and concern. Standing beside Ceres, Shizuko calmly greeted the chief, her presence causing visible shock and disbelief. The chief was stunned to see Shizuko alive, having believed Zector's claim about her death. Faced with hesitation, Shizuko chose to confront the truth herself, determined to face Zector directly. The chief reacted furiously, condemning Zector as a criminal who deserved harsh punishment for his betrayal. News revealed Zector had been taken by the feudal lord after failing to pay village taxes. Shizuko laughed loudly, amused by Zector's downfall and satisfied with the justice fate had delivered. Shizuko's laughter finally subsided as both Ceres and the chief urged her to regain composure. She apologized with a calm breath, regaining control after her emotional outburst. Reflecting on her pain, she accepted Zector's fate, believing his punishment was already far worse. Ceres silently agreed, realizing her words weren't exaggerated. Zector's life had indeed collapsed completely. Exiled and enslaved in the mines, Zector was now rejected even by his former village. Zector, consumed by jealousy, wasted his son's money on luxury, ignoring the needs of the village. Despite everything, Ceres recalled a few warm memories from their past. Though betrayal remained unforgivable, the chief acknowledged their growth, glad things ended in peace, rather than in vengeance. Both were praised Ceres for his courage, and Shizuko for finding happiness she once thought impossible. Laughter followed as the chief teased Ceres, surprised he truly married the woman he once vowed to protect. With a playful grin, Ceres handed coins to the chief, lightening the mood with humor. The chief teased them about married life, suggesting they get some rest or even tire themselves further. Embarrassed laughter followed as the couple stood outside, their bond quietly growing stronger with each moment. Finally home, Shizuko smiled warmly, feeling peace return as she stepped into familiar surroundings. Choosing joy over resentment, she embraced her future beside Ceres, grateful for the love she found. After a long journey, they finally found a moment of peace and light-hearted teasing. A playful suggestion shifted the mood, hinting at something more personal behind their relaxed smiles. Gentle touches broke the stillness, their closeness revealing trust built through shared trials and private understanding. Tension escalated as their connection deepened, each movement expressing unspoken affection and long-suppressed desire. Emotions surged to a peak, their bond reaffirmed in quiet intensity beneath the surface of intimacy. Sunlight streamed through the window as they greeted the day, weary from yesterday's relentless pace. Amusement sparked between them. Noon had arrived unnoticed. She didn't mind his affection felt sincere, weighing the hour and their plans. He suggested patience while others remained busy with work. Confident in his timing, he proposed visiting someone familiar, judging it to be appropriate now. She agreed with a smile, ready to accompany him and reconnect with old companions. Kazuma and his wife Haruka ran the village's only meal restaurant named after him. Though not blood-related, he treated Kazuma like a brother and found comfort in their bond. Upon returning, they were greeted warmly. Familiar surroundings eased the tension that lingered from before. Haruka welcomed them with curiosity. Shizuko downplayed her hardship, quietly crediting Ceres for her safety. Laughter broke out as playful teasing resumed, their closeness showing in every word and gesture. Light teasing continued between them, though affection was evident beneath the surface of every remark. She expressed joy over being cherished, her confidence growing from the warmth Ceres always showed. Hints of unspoken feelings stirred tension, but the moment passed with Haruka shifting focus to cooking. Kazuma greeted them warmly, reuniting with a smile that reflected shared history and lasting bonds. Memories surfaced as Ceres recalled Kazuma's support during his childhood, solidifying the strength of their brotherhood. He recalled a time when his heart quietly leaned toward her, admiration left unspoken. Though those feelings faded, he had long accepted them and moved forward without regret. While sipping his drink, he reflected on their bond and how perfect they were together. A sudden question caught him off guard, her playful tone cutting through his composure. Cornered by honesty, he admitted the truth: his feelings ran deeper than just sibling affection. He quietly reflected on the past, confessing who first captured his heart and how it changed. In a world where age mattered less, their youthful look still stirred passing curiosity and thoughts. Agreeing with a grin, he acknowledged her appearance hadn't aged a day, a rare charm. She basked in the compliment, subtly seeking more, her pride gently teasing his flustered reaction. Though embarrassed, he clarified his feelings and defended both women, his sincerity shining through awkward remarks. Another man openly confessed his past hopes with Shizuko, believing he could be her joy. Ceres respected the boundaries around Kazuma's wife, recognizing her as family through deep mutual trust. Though once smitten, he chose to support from afar, cherishing their sibling bond over desire. Shizuko's soft words hinted at change, quietly challenging the certainty he once clung to. While doubt stirred, encouragement came unexpectedly, suggesting that hope might not be fully lost yet. While sipping tea, he considered the idea perhaps things could resolve without bitterness. After all, a bold suggestion stunned him, her words teasing yet laced with unexpected seriousness. Though joking about loneliness, she gave her quiet approval, trusting him with an unspoken choice. Later that night, closeness unfolded in silence, emotions exchanged without the need for words. Clarification followed, tradition shaped their customs, and intentions weren't as scandalous as they first appeared. Uncertainty lingered as he questioned the deeper implications behind the village's traditional custom. Rules existed for a reason, and she emphasized that following them would ensure mutual respect. Though hesitant, he was urged to prioritize what mattered now over social expectations. With a firm smile, she reminded him boundaries mattered, and within them, nothing was forbidden. The wife explained the rules of a traditional night visit, emphasizing respect and quiet approach. Later, the boy learned the rules were surprisingly lenient, though ignoring them could cause serious trouble. She smiled, hoping her actions would bring happiness to Haruka, her son's new companion. Before leaving, she encouraged him to stay focused and do his best during the visit. Conflicted, he stood outside the door, questioning himself, despite just marrying Shizuko with her full support. Creeping quietly into the room, he questioned if her insistence meant this might actually succeed. Although unsure of Shizuko's intent, he believed this chance might bring both her and Haruka closer. Seeing her asleep, he chose to act, deciding to seize the opportunity without hesitation. Conflicted thoughts stirred. He wondered why Kazuma wasn't there and assumed they shared a bed. Her exposed form left him tense, yet he remained still, trying to calm his nerves. Remaining still proved painful, and his legs began to go numb as he waited in silence. She woke up and turned, eyes locking on him in surprise and confusion. Rising cautiously, she questioned his name, trying to understand what he was doing there. Her tone softened, yet her eyes stayed sharp as she addressed him directly. She pointed out his position beside her, questioning if he truly understood its meaning. Ceres smiled nervously, unsure how to respond as her heart pounded under Haruka's gaze. Without warning, she smacked him hard, furious yet flustered by his clueless behavior. Standing up, Haruka demanded answers. Mistaking the situation as some kind of joke at her expense, she launched a powerful kick, shouting that such behavior was utterly unacceptable. Despite her outburst, she declared she was calm, while Ceres backed away, pleading for peace. Haruka demanded an explanation, and just as Ceres tried to confess, she silenced him abruptly. Dismissing his words as a joke, she shouted, refusing to believe his feelings were sincere. Her tough expression cracked, revealing hurt. Even she felt wounded by what seemed like mockery. Cerise began to speak the truth, but someone called out, interrupting the tension in the room. A man entered, confused by the scene, calling Cerise's name with concern and suspicion. Cerise smiled blankly, resigned to his fate, convinced that this was the end for him. Surrounded and pressured, he listened as Haruka warned their bond might be severed depending on his answer. With everyone waiting, he hesitated, but knew he could no longer remain silent. He admitted he had feelings for Haruka, but gave up because she already had Kazuma. Haruka lashed out, furious and betrayed, while Kazuma watched in grim silence beside her. Kazuma silenced Haruka firmly, declaring this was a conversation between men that needed to happen. He reminded Ceres that love isn't easily abandoned, just like his own feelings for Haruka. Despite Ceres' hesitation, Kazuma pushed him to be honest, and stop holding back. Ceres faced forward, determined, ready to reveal everything hidden in his heart. He admitted his jealousy, believing their smiles meant he never had a chance from the start. Kazuma acknowledged Ceres' feelings, and surprisingly, wished for both him and Haruka to find happiness. He reflected on Haruka's youth, noting she was still a mother despite her appearance and age. Turning serious, Kazuma asked the crucial question, did Ceres truly still love Haruka? Ceres admitted he didn't want to give up, believing love wasn't limited by age or status. With determination, he declared he'd confess his love if Haruka was willing to accept him. Ceres tried to deflect the topic, but Kazuma demanded clarity on his feelings for Haruka, driven by emotion. Ceres finally shouted his true feelings. He loved her without hesitation. Kazuma challenged the confession, warning how quickly time would age Haruka, despite her youthful look. He questioned whether Ceres could love her even in old age, demanding lifelong commitment. Without backing down, Ceres declared his feelings wouldn't change. No matter how much time passed, Kazuma turned to Haruka, asking what she thought, while she blushed quietly, processing everything. Haruka questioned his feelings, reminding him she once cared for him as a baby. She recalled how young he was when he confessed love, unsure how to handle it now. Kazuma, ever blunt, shouted she'd be an old hag, causing both shock and embarrassment. Despite their doubts, Ceres remained firm, declaring his will to stay and love her always. Ceres looked straight ahead, voice steady, declaring that despite everything, his feelings remained unchanged. Haruka blushed deeply, realizing the depth of his sincerity and how much it affected her. Kazuma gave a nod of approval and stepped aside, ready to leave them to talk alone. However, his sudden challenge startled both of them, pushing the situation into uncomfortable territory. Ceres steadied Haruka, catching her gently, the tension lingering as the moment grew unexpectedly awkward. Haruka challenged Ceres to prove his love directly, shocking everyone with her bold demand. Despite her hesitation, Ceres agreed, leaving her flustered by his unexpected seriousness. He and Kazuma sealed the promise, while Haruka panicked at the unfolding situation. Tension filled the room as Ceres sat silently before her, eyes fixed with intent. Without hesitation, he gently lifted her up, causing a startled blush to rise on her face. She struggled to speak as he carried her closer, yet he pressed forward with calm resolve. Despite lingering feelings for another, he confessed his desire, catching her completely off guard, flustered and overwhelmed. She tried to regain control, but her heart had already betrayed her. He closed the distance, placing his hand gently against her cheek, eyes locked with hers. Though words were few, her flushed face revealed an answer that needed no explanation. A quiet resolve guided her actions as she leaned in and met his lips. Their closeness deepened, unaware of the silent observer seated nearby, watching without expression. Moments later, the atmosphere grew heavier as boundaries blurred and hesitation faded between them. Alone in the room, she lay in quiet anticipation, trying to hide her nervousness. He approached with gentle admiration, offering words that made her face flush with mixed emotions. A moment of hesitation passed as he reached out, tension rising between them without restraint. Conflicted feelings surfaced. She urged caution, unsure if boundaries had already been crossed too far. Another presence nearby shattered the moment, prompting reflection and unresolved feelings between them both. Sudden closeness places both figures in an unfamiliar position, causing confusion and heightened awareness. Movement becomes hesitant, with restraint slowly giving way to instinct. Postures shift as balance changes, creating a fragile pause filled with conflicted emotion. Awareness deepens while restraint weakens under mounting tension. An internal struggle emerges between responsibility and desire. The situation reaches its peak as control slips further. Overwhelming sensations replace rational thought, leaving both caught between hesitation and surrender, unsure how far the moment will carry them. Tension escalated as emotions broke through restraint, their closeness driven by something deeper than impulse. In silence, they lingered, locked in a moment that neither dared to question too soon. Uncertainty surfaced behind flushed cheeks, her voice trembling under the weight of long-buried doubt. He answered with honesty, affirming what she needed to hear, calming the storm in her chest. Relief softened her expression. For the first time, she let herself feel whole again. Quiet admiration lingered as she regained composure, realizing how closely feelings had begun intertwining there. From the doorway, another presence observed calmly, measuring consequences before stepping fully into the room. Moments later, awareness settled as the situation clarified, embarrassment replacing intensity across the unmade bed. Responsibility tempered relief, attention shifted toward boundaries, ensuring no harm followed the lapse afterward, quietly. With tension eased, resolve formed quietly, suggesting growth would follow this fragile turning point ahead. With a calm voice, the man acknowledged their separation, making the situation unmistakably clear. Her tone remained steady, framing their connection as nothing more than a friendly understanding now. Time apart had changed things. Thoughts of starting over once seemed distant, yet no longer impossible. Memories led her back to someone who once meant something more than just a name. Doubt lingered. What if feelings hadn't changed? She questioned intentions, unsure whether to hope or dismiss. With a calm smile, he offered closure if feelings remained. He would step aside without protest. Despite hearing it earlier, she still struggled to accept the reality unfolding before her. Even as a child, his gaze held a sense of attachment that never quite faded. Admitting it wasn't easy, but truth now felt lighter shared between the three of them. Old bonds acknowledged, he gave his blessing, encouraging a new beginning built on trust and care. He confessed his hope that she'd find someone better, someone who wouldn't lead her to sorrow. Now convinced, he believed Haruka's future might be brighter in different hands. Responsibility shifted as he stepped back, trusting the next chapter to unfold with courage and care. New possibilities opened as her tone hinted at playful yet bold suggestions for what may come. Still carrying old promises, she left the choice in his hands, eyes steady with expectation. Concerns about managing the restaurant rose, but humor and outlandish plans quickly shifted the mood. She teased him over his wording, while he casually dismissed offers of financial help. Support between brothers surfaced naturally, one offering help, the other accepting it with quiet gratitude. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, each vowing to bring joy into the days ahead. Side by side, they smiled with calm certainty, ready to face their future. Together at last, while walking through town, they noticed Shizuko's absence and felt an urge to speak with her. With a warm smile, she addressed Ceres, hinting she still watched from a distance. Their steps took a nostalgic turn, leading them back to a place filled with shared memories. She recalled their childhood, a time when care came freely, even if responsibilities were light. Under moonlight, reflections surfaced. Growth was undeniable. Ceres had changed, and she acknowledged it without hesitation. She teased him about the nostalgic detour, unaware his intentions carried more weight than scenery. With a calm smile, he dismissed the assumption, hinting something more heartfelt was coming. Now alone, he revealed there was something important he'd been waiting to say in private. Past memories held value, but he wanted to start building something new side by side, reaching out. He expressed it clearly. He wished to walk forward with her, as partners. She stood still, caught off guard by his bold words, yet her hand reached forward. Under moonlight, she embraced him tightly, holding on to the warmth that answered her unspoken thoughts. Although the night stretched on, neither wanted to leave. Closeness mattered more than returning. Resting together, they found peace logic forgotten, but a quiet happiness settling firmly between them. Mel sat at her desk, buried in scrolls, frustration mounting as ink stained her hand. She struggled to draft reports detailing supplies and plans, questioning how Ceres ever handled this. Papers flew as she snapped, overwhelmed by the church's endless expectations and constant nitpicking. Meanwhile, Zek dodged chores, refusing laundry duty with an excuse that made Lyda roll her eyes. In truth, his sword barely required care, unlike the burdens Mel silently endured every day. Lyda voiced her frustration, explaining how her weapon dulled quickly and nearly got her killed. In another room, Maria refused to move, rejecting any task before it was even spoken. Sprawled on the bed, she yelled her refusal again, unwilling to lift a finger to help. Zek finally snapped, blaming himself for the chaotic imbalance within their struggling and unmotivated party. In truth, his role often overlooked carried the weight. No title or power could match. Gathered in the room, the group hesitated as Zek posed the question about Ceres returning. Each began acknowledging his value, his practicality, skill, and how irreplaceable he had truly been. Zect made the decision official, declaring that they must reunite with the one they cast out. Yet doubt surfaced, guilt lingered. Memories of their betrayal began weighing heavier than expected. When reminded of the necklace incident, Zect faltered, realizing their mistreatment may have cut too deep. Maria confronted Zect, accusing him of knowingly humiliating Ceres and questioning his ability to forgive. The weight of her words hit him. He admitted he would have retaliated if roles were reversed. Even after being cast out, Ceres had shown grace, offering kind words as he walked away. The party now recognized their fault, wondering how to amend the damage they had caused. They set out together, vowing to return what they stole: Ceres' dignity, home, and sense of belonging. Zect considered returning Mel to Ceres, but quickly dismissed it as far from sufficient. Lyda and Maria became the next candidates in his desperate mental negotiation. Faced with their reactions, he froze, overwhelmed by the implications of what he had caused. Alone again, he stood conflicted, uncertain of what action could truly set things right. Elsewhere, Mel reflected, amused by her son's transformation, uncertain when he became so complicated. Sitting at the tavern, the women shared drinks, acknowledging how much had happened along the way. Despite everything, one of them smiled, expressing genuine happiness in having ended up with Ceres. Sayo, Mel's mother, admitted it felt unfair, surprised she'd fallen for someone so much younger. Even knowing his preferences, Misaki couldn't help feeling conflicted over the unexpected relationship. Their conversation turned nostalgic, recalling Ceres' early charm and how mature he had always seemed. Sayo confidently stated that Ceres' love had always been directed at her as a woman. She treated him seriously, despite the age gap, seeing him as someone emotionally mature. Misaki agreed, noting how Ceres was different and impossible to treat like a typical child. Shizuko, however, only saw him as a strange but perfect son, not as a man. With a knowing smile, Sayo hinted, that's when Shizuko's feelings had quietly begun to change. Sayo hesitated, cheeks flushed, as she boldly asked about Shizuko's intimate life with Ceres. Laughter broke the tension, the women deflecting with jokes about their age and fading allure. Shizuko blushed, recalling tender nights filled with unspoken passion and overwhelming closeness she never expected. Though embarrassed, she admitted she had no regrets. Her smile revealed quiet contentment. Even amid teasing, admiration surfaced. They recognized the deep bond Shizuko shared with someone who saw beyond age. The women opened up about neglect in their marriages, revealing years of distance and quiet hurt. Suspicion lingered. Sayo questioned whether Shizuko's honesty was born from sincerity or possessiveness. Shizuko, however, offered reassurance with a smile, reminding them of the promise they once made. Their bond echoed again, united in hardships, laughter, and even love, no matter how complicated. Without shame, she revealed a mark on her neck, proof shared only out of loyalty. The vivid marks on Shizuko's skin left the others stunned, their reactions a mix of disbelief and envy. Sayo's tone shifted, questioning whether Shizuko was flaunting her happiness for validation or attention. Unbothered, Shizuko calmly revealed she had arranged for Ceres to visit another woman that night. Doubts arose. But Shizuko explained her reasoning, seeing what others refused to acknowledge in Haruka's situation. Ceres, she insisted, didn't just care, he truly saw them, not as burdens but as women. With a serious gaze, Shizuko leaned in, her voice quiet but unwavering. She stretched her arms wide, asking them to let go of their unhappy marriages and reclaim themselves. The others froze, stunned by the directness of her plea. She urged them to be seen again, not as neglected wives, but as women deserving warmth and affection. Her words struck deep. Hope stirred quietly behind a veil of disbelief and longing. Sayo's heart fluttered at the thought, unsure if such hope could truly be real. Misaki, however, remained guarded, warning that betrayal would be met with consequences. Shizuko stood firm, insisting every word was honest, and invited them to reclaim their former selves. Old titles returned: Berserk, Black Knight, Ice Princess. Their youthful vigor sparked once more. Laughter echoed. United again, they embraced not just freedom but their forgotten strength and sisterhood. A quiet gathering among women shifts when the conversation turns to Ceres. Shizuko's expression grows serious. She admits her anger toward her son, no longer able to hide her disappointment behind pleasantries. Though his actions were influenced by others, her son's decision to expel Ceres caused lasting regret. While others relaxed, Ceres handled everything silently, shouldering burdens and expenses without complaint or support. Abandoned and cast out, Ceres walked away alone. Shizuko, filled with guilt, couldn't forgive what happened. News of Maria's actions left her companion stunned. Understanding the full weight, she frowned in silence. Mel's involvement only deepened the tension. Shizuko began forming her own quiet plan for justice. Her decision became clear to marry Ceres along with the others, and leave the village behind. Meanwhile Zect returned home, unaware his actions had severed ties that would never mend again. With calm resolve, the women acknowledged the cost. Their loyalty now belonged to Ceres alone. One woman predicted her husband would replace her with a slave, should she choose to leave. Shizuko, smiling calmly, shifted the topic. Their focus moved to how this would affect the children. A hypothetical was posed: what if the one abandoned turned out stronger than the hero himself? Concern rose over age and ability, yet the idea of supporting Ceres gained quiet agreement. Laughter broke tension, old titles resurfaced, and memories reminded them they were still capable warriors. Teasing banter continued as another former warrior, Misaki, was called out by her old title. Later that night, Ceres sat surrounded. Their decision was clear form, a party built on love. Confidence in Ceres' kindness reassured them. Leaving the past behind no longer felt uncertain. Shizuko gave a final nod. The plan was agreed upon without hesitation, without delay. She invited them to witness something. Proof awaited just beyond their quiet home. Outside the house, Shizuko insisted on silence as they approached the door with cautious steps. Inside, a girl hurried down the hall, cheeks flushed, calling for Ceres with urgency. She entered boldly, surprising Ceres in a moment that caught them both off guard and unprepared. Despite the setting, tension built quickly, and boundaries blurred as emotions overtook hesitation. What began abruptly unfolded further inside, unspoken feelings driving their impulsive and intimate connection forward. Inside, a quiet room, tension rises as bodies press close, nervous resolve mixing with hesitation and urgency. Against the door, imbalance follows, breath quickening, while restraint weakens under mounting emotional pressure. Shock flashes across faces as awareness spreads, realization arriving alongside embarrassment and conflicted reactions. From the hallway, others witness the scene. Curiosity, surprise, and rivalry, blending into a charged atmosphere. Afterward, flushed expressions linger, confidence replacing doubt, while unspoken consequences quietly settle between everyone involved. Outside, Shizuko steadies herself before others, exhaustion showing as suspicion quietly gathers around her nearby. Inside, blame surfaces as Shizuko confronts the setup, arms crossed, resolve firm despite lingering tension. Stairs become crowded when Haruka appears smiling, instincts warning danger while Ceres senses complicated intentions. Memory flashes years earlier, revealing Haruka's bold nature, reframing accusations and unsettling everyone present there. Back in present, confusion erupts, jealousy softens into acceptance, and Ceres stands changed under eyes. Three women stand together with a request, hoping to join the journey that lies ahead. Though unsure about vengeance, Ceres admits he'd accept them sincerely, without hesitation or judgment. Memories of betrayal return briefly, but freedom from expectations now brings unexpected relief. He recalls the moment he was dismissed, knowing his actions were never for personal gain. Facing them again, he clarifies his stance: revenge held no place in his heart. Ceres calmly agrees to take them in, but voices hesitation about seeking justice against the others. Though they sympathize with his past, he remains firm punishment was never his goal. Facing the group, he admits he once cared, yet harbors no lingering resentment. One of them questions his sincerity, reminding him of the betrayal he endured. Instead of bitterness, he confesses admiration for those who stood by him, women strong and kind. Their expressions soften as they realize Ceres never saw the others as equals to them. He recalls being used and discarded, reminding them of how little value he once held. Because of hero party status, he now has the right to accept them as wives. Ceres smiles, choosing peace over bitterness, wanting to move forward with no regrets. However, the women firmly disagree. What was done to him must not be overlooked. Faced with unified resolve, Ceres realizes any resistance would be pointless against their determined stares. They offer justice on his behalf, though he hesitates, unsure how far it should go. For now, attention shifts to unresolved matters involving Seo and Misaki's complicated ties. Days later, Kaido commands loudly while Seo responds obediently, the tension hidden beneath routine exchanges. Alone, her words carry weight. Resentment brews, hinting at deeper cracks beneath the surface. With quiet anticipation, Seo reflects on the moment, knowing Ceres will arrive to change everything. Determined, she walks away without regret, casting off the weight of her former life. Ceres stood before a modest home, determined to speak with Kaito, Seo's husband. A warm welcome from a smiling woman eased his tension as he stepped forward. Despite her kind expression, anxiety lingered in his chest. Inside the house, Kaito sat casually, drink in hand, greeting Ceres with a relaxed tone. Kaito had prepared a full meal. Startled by the gesture, Ceres hesitated, unsure how to respond. Ceres questioned his place at the table, but Kaito remained calm, pouring a drink. He invited Ceres to begin. Gratitude filled the young man's voice. Their glasses met. Mutual respect settled in as they spoke. Ceres acknowledged Kaito's past support. In the fields, Kaito watched over young Ceres as he practiced with a hoe. Though Ceres credited him for everything, Kaito corrected him firmly. Memories resurfaced as they talked. Every time an adventurer passed through the village, Kaito had pushed Ceres forward, asking them to teach him. Gratitude filled Ceres' voice. He acknowledged more than just combat training. He appreciated every lesson, every opportunity. Back at the table, he thought about how different Kaito was from his previous harsh mentors. Reflecting deeper, Ceres remembered being an orphan. His bond with Kaito hadn't just been guidance, it was survival. More than training, it was connection. Ceres leaned forward, ready to speak honestly. To him, the villagers were like family. Kaito, already aware of the visitor's purpose, calmly suggested they get to the point. He mentioned Sayo's name. Without hesitation, Ceres confirmed it. Behind him, Sayo peeked from the doorway, listening silently. Kaito didn't hesitate. With a serious expression, he gave his answer. If Ceres truly wanted Sayo, he wouldn't stop him. Thoughts drifted to the past. When Sayo married into the family, Kaito's father was still alive. Their marriage had never been a happy one. The elder's pressure had been constant. Every day, he demanded a daughter to continue the line. After his father passed away, Kaito tried to support Sayo, but resentment had already built. Kaito confessed his own guilt. He had sided with his father, shouting at Sayo and worsening her unhappiness. In his view, the outcome wasn't surprising. From Ceres' perspective, Kaito never crossed a physical line. Harsh words were frequent, but deeper than blame, the issue was emotional distance. Recognizing Ceres' feelings, Kaito handed him a pouch. He acknowledged the boy's sincerity and long-standing affection for Sayo, granting his approval without further resistance. Another matter arose. Though Kaito had once hoped Ceres would marry Mel, that future had slipped away. With calm finality, Kaito told Ceres he would offer Sayo in place of his daughter. Tears gathered in her eyes. She quietly apologized, calling him dear, her voice filled with long-suppressed regret. Kaito looked stunned. He insisted he was the one who should be apologizing, failing to shield her and speaking harshly. Ceres asked what Kaito planned to do next. With a raised brow, Kaito smiled as if a mischievous thought had taken root. A booming laugh erupted. Kaito joked about chasing young brides after the depressing hag left. Sayo trembled while Ceres looked on, half shocked, half exasperated by the absurdity. Sayo questioned Kaito's earlier apology, confused by the shift in tone. He admitted guilt but made no effort to soften his next words. Without hesitation, Kaito insulted her again. His preference for younger women was voiced with cruel clarity. The pain she'd held back finally broke through. With trembling fists and tears streaming, she shouted her hatred without restraint. Annoyed by the emotional display, Kaito told Ceres to take her and leave. Despite her fury, Ceres gently pulled Sayo close. While she screamed her hatred, he simply suggested they leave and find happiness elsewhere. As Sayo quietly finished cleaning, Ceres stepped in and asked if she was done. Her silence lingered. Sitting down, she wiped away a tear and sighed. What she expected to be an emotional goodbye turned into something completely different. She raised her voice, venting her feelings. Instead of walking out on her own terms, it felt like she'd been dismissed. Ceres extended his hand, smiling. He reminded her they had finished what needed to be done. A new life together, waited simple, free, and theirs to enjoy. Sayo turned back, still slightly flustered, but her voice softened. She apologized for the delay, her mood already beginning to shift toward something lighter. Ceres noticed a worn-out broom resting near the wall, and curiously asked Sayo about it. It looked old but oddly significant. She picked it up, smiling with fondness. Memories resurfaced as she explained how she once practiced magic with it as a child. A playful grin appeared on her face. With a teasing voice, she asked if he wanted to take a ride. Shock struck Ceres as the broom suddenly took off. From below, he watched in disbelief, shouting in awe. Flying wasn't something he had expected from her. Still holding the broom confidently, Sayo confirmed it. She reminded him that she was, after all, a wizard. Together, they soared above the rooftops. Ceres held on tightly, stunned by how casually Sayo maneuvered through the air. She explained that even Mel, talented as she was, couldn't fly. Sayo's spells were powerful. Ceres compared their abilities, While he could use a spell like airwalk, it didn't allow him to reach such heights. Suspended in the night sky, he began to understand her background. Sayo's past as an S-class adventurer made perfect sense now. Her skill was beyond anything ordinary. Gazing forward, he asked if she had calmed down. Despite everything, he wanted to make sure she was okay as they drifted quietly above the world. Kaido quietly admitted that after raising his child and growing old, he expected to grow old alongside his wife and die with her. Sayo reflected on how she had once accepted that life. He treated her like a servant, and she assumed she'd care for him until the end simply because there was nowhere else to go. Learning about Ceres from Shizuko changed everything. For the first time in years, she saw a path forward. Looking back, she acknowledged her frustration. But truthfully, if neither of them depended on the other anymore, nervous laughter filled the air. Ceres insisted he would never leave her. She asked if he truly meant it. As they climbed higher into the night sky, Ceres grew nervous. Sayo seemed completely at ease, reminiscing about her conversation with someone from her past. Turning toward him, she leaned in. Before he could gather his thoughts, she reminded him he hadn't proposed yet. Ceres froze. Her voice was soft but firm. Despite everything they'd been through, she was still waiting for him to ask properly. Instead, she pressed further. If he loved her since childhood, she wanted to know exactly why. Her question wasn't just playful, it was sincere. He blushed uncontrollably as she teased him, breathing into his ear and squeezing his arm. Sayo's playful teasing backfired. Surprised by her own reaction, she suddenly froze mid-air. Ceres instinctively grabbed her to steady the flight. She lost focus completely. The closeness startled her, overwhelmed by how long it had been since anyone touched her. The broom wobbled, and their altitude dropped fast. Crashing through the trees, they fell into the forest below. Thankfully, branches slowed the impact. Ceres quickly asked if she was hurt while catching his breath. He opened his eyes and found himself above her, stunned by the moment. Their clothes were scuffed, but both remained still, eyes locked. Neither moved away. Instead, Ceres leaned in, gently embracing her. No words followed, just a quiet closeness that sealed the tension between them. Lying close, Ceres quietly whispered her name. Sayo's eyes met his, both caught in the moment. He gently reached for her hand. In the still forest, he admitted this might be their only private time. She moved closer, smiling playfully. Wrapping her arms around him, she asked if this was where they'd truly begin. In the quiet forest, Ceres and Sayo shared a charged silence, kneeling close. His emotions overwhelmed caution. Before the moment deepened, Sayo gently halted him. Rising to her feet, she cast a brief glance back. With steady focus, she lifted her hand and summoned a barrier spell into the night air, protecting their perimeter. She ensured no beasts or threats would disturb them. The barrier shimmered across the forest floor, subtle but effective. Assured of safety, Sayo turned and offered a quiet smile. With the world sealed away, closeness returned. Breathing deepened. Hands moved gently, and warmth spread between them. Eyes closed and breath uneven, Sayo reacted to the intensity of their growing closeness. Every movement brought a new ripple of sensation. Ceres pressed closer, his hands guided by instinct. The atmosphere shifted, no longer hesitant, but drawn by unspoken understanding between them. She noticed his rising urgency, her gaze lowering in acknowledgement. Though her words teased, her expression revealed acceptance more than resistance. Lowering herself with calm intent, Sayo responded to his need. Ceres trembled, overwhelmed by her gentle initiative and complete focus. Leaning in, she deepened the moment. Hands wandered, touch slowed. What started as tension now carried a shared rhythm of desire and trust. Breathing heavily, Sayo met his eyes with quiet confidence. She made no attempt to hide her intent. He knelt without hesitation, her body tensed. As sensations surged, the barrier held, leaving them in silence. Supportive hands lifted her slightly. She whispered his name, overwhelmed by the intensity steadily building between them. Against the tree, he held her tightly. No words were exchanged, but their movements stayed in rhythm. Time blurred. Her arms clung to him as closeness peaked. Passion moved steadily without interruption or hesitation. Deep within the forest, away from any watchful eyes, they paused under the trees. She clung to him, her expression a blend of longing and resolve. Their closeness deepened, movement rhythmic and breathless urgency rose between them. As stillness returned, her body trembled. His arms remained wrapped around her, holding her through the aftermath. Later, they sat together on the grass, avoiding each other's gaze. The forest around them returned to stillness. She smiled, faintly, and suggested it remain a secret. He nodded once, agreeing without words, and the path behind them grew silent once more. As they prepared to return, the broken staff on the ground revealed the consequences of their earlier fall. Continuing on foot became their only option. With the barrier nearing its end, they remained alert, knowing danger lurked beyond the trees. Two feral beasts emerged from the shadows, snarling and ready to strike. He instinctively moved to defend, but she raised her hand before he could finish his warning. With calm precision, she activated her magic. A wave of frost erupted beneath the monsters, locking their limbs in a frozen snare. Sharp icicles rained from above, crashing down in a merciless flurry. The creatures were silenced in an instant, shattered and defeated. After the encounter, they resumed their path through the forest. Her confident smile contrasted his uneasy nod, but neither voiced their thoughts aloud. As they walked, he reflected silently on her skills. She fought with ease, casting fast, effective spells and striking with precision. Their progress halted when a towering beast emerged. Larger and fiercer than before, it radiated a stronger presence. Without hesitation, she raised her hand and invoked another spell. A powerful current of freezing energy spiraled toward the enemy, encasing the monster in a burst of chilling force. The beast stood stunned, struggling but unharmed. Shock crossed his face. With a small smile, she proudly claimed the spell as her original creation. Despite the complex nature of the technique, she made it sound simple. He listened, impressed, but slightly overwhelmed, his mind lingering on how easily she controlled such dangerous magic. As they continued walking, he noticed something off. Her expression shifted when he pointed out a familiar landmark. She hesitated for a moment, offering a half-hearted excuse. He pieced the signs together and quietly voiced the question they both dreaded: were they lost? The silence between them grew heavy. Turning toward her, he asked directly if she truly knew the way. Ceres had noticed how the women in the village chose quiet lives despite their strength. Living peacefully seemed out of place for warriors capable of forcing their way through any obstacle. Wandering through the forest afterward, he reflected on their pasts. Something hidden remained untold. Hours passed. The trail looked familiar. When Sayo hesitated again, he began to question their direction. The uneasy expression on her face confirmed his suspicion. They'd been circling for a while, and despite her confident steps, they were clearly off course. Trying not to sound accusing, he asked if she truly knew the way. His voice lowered, unsure whether she was lost or just distracted. Sayo leaned gently against him, her voice calm but sincere. Time alone meant more to her than any path or destination. Hearing her subtle confession, he lowered his eyes. Guilt clung to him, yet admiration for her honesty softened his expression. Stepping forward, he closed the distance between them. With her name on his lips, he reached out not with doubt, but with quiet certainty. From behind, his arms wrapped around her. No hesitation remained. He voiced his feelings clearly, asking not for the moment, but for forever. Their hands clasped gently. Her smile, bright and steady, carried no doubt. She accepted his wish, no words wasted. While walking together, Sayo reflected on the complicated truth she had taken her daughter's boyfriend. Despite that, she showed no hesitation. As they arrived home, her cheerful voice echoed through the doorway, masking any lingering guilt with a smile. Inside, the other women greeted them with suspicion and teasing. Unspoken questions hung in the air, aimed more at Ceres than her. Ceres stepped into the quiet shop, taking a moment to observe the shelves of supplies. The cozy general store, which doubled as a food vendor, belonged to Shuto and Misaki. He was welcomed warmly by Misaki, who had anticipated his visit. Shuto glanced up from his book, acknowledging Ceres' presence. With a relaxed smile, Shuto greeted him casually. His tone carried ease, hinting at a long-standing familiarity. Shuto moved to the counter and reached for something, insisting Ceres relax. Misaki watched silently as Shuto prepared what he had been saving specifically for the occasion. From behind the counter, Shuto revealed a bottle of brandy. Shuto leaned back with confidence, praising Ceres for his sharp understanding. In the entire village, few ever truly related to him. Despite being seen as eccentric, Shuto had deep knowledge of fine items and uncommon intellect. Years earlier, Ceres sat beside Shuto, pen in hand. Though reincarnated, many memories had faded. By the age of 5, Ceres had mastered writing, an achievement that even Shuto considered remarkable. Misaki, listening nearby, acknowledged the impact Shuto had on Ceres' growth. Their bond was built on mutual respect, while Shuto read. Ceres managed the store. They supported each other in quiet, practical ways, forming a partnership that shaped Ceres' early life. Shuto raised his glass, savoring the taste of the drink. In another setting, he could have been a renowned scholar rather than a misunderstood man in a quiet village. Ceres responded with appreciation, enjoying the relaxed atmosphere. Moments like these with Shuto and Kazuma remained rare, but welcome. Reflecting on their conversations, Shuto admitted that speaking with others brought little joy. Only a few truly understood him. With a calm tone, Shuto confessed his shortcomings as a husband and father. Caring for Maria had always felt burdensome to him. Misaki stepped forward, cutting through the chatter. She reminded Ceres of the real reason he came, and he silently acknowledged it. Misaki gave her consent without hesitation. Standing firm, she told Ceres he could take her with him. Shuto echoed the same sentiment. No longer seeing himself as a husband, he reaffirmed what he had said before. His feelings for Misaki had faded long ago. Since Maria's birth, their emotional distance only grew, leaving their relationship cold. Ceres lowered his gaze, listening closely. Shuto acknowledged what had been quietly known, that Ceres had feelings for Misaki for some time. Relaxed, now, both men faced each other across the table. Ceres asked if Shuto had known, and the answer came with a smirk. A memory resurfaced. Misaki once bathed the two boys together. Her tone was light, but Ceres clearly flustered. Shuto calmly brought up Ceres's past, noting his early loss, and the natural longing for maternal care. Sitting beside Misaki, Ceres listened as Shuto rationalized the situation. Emotional connections like these weren't rare. Shuto offered reassurance, his tone shifting to a casual tease. He believed Ceres could bring Misaki happiness, even if their pairing seemed unusual. With a slightly strained smile, Misaki reacted to being lumped in with grandmothers. She held her composure, if barely. Ceres asked about Shuto's future plans, confident he already had something clever in mind. Shuto's enthusiastic response surprised them. With a grin, Shuto declared his intention to buy a young slave, leaving Ceres speechless and stunned. He explained further, seeking a smart girl eager to learn. Unlike Misaki or Maria, who he criticized openly, Shuto hoped for engaging conversation and companionship. Misaki calmly responded by slamming her hand down, masking her irritation with a smile. Ceres, caught in the tension, apologized for taking her away. Shuto brushed it off, stating she was no longer his wife and had no right to hit him. Ceres silently wished to leave with Misaki as quickly as possible. Ceres watched Shuto's expression shift. With realization setting in, he softly spoke Misaki's name, piecing everything together. Misaki responded with a gentle smile. She agreed without hesitation, and Ceres invited her to return home with him. Shuto cheered at his newfound freedom. Now able to read endlessly, he teased them both, pretending it was all part of his plan. Outside the village, Ceres proposed a future together. He asked Misaki to register as family once they were settled, prompting her quiet surprise and acceptance. They stood before the church. Ceres asked if she needed anything, and Misaki's soft well hinted at an unspoken thought she held close. Misaki spoke gently, recalling how she never had a proper wedding. Her husband had no interest, and she never wore a dress. A smile crossed her face as she admitted some of it was her own fault. Instead of a ceremony, they had simply signed documents. Ceres listened closely. She explained that in her youth, her muscular build made her self-conscious about dressing up. Hearing that, Ceres grew curious. The thought of Misaki in a dress struck him, and he couldn't hide his reaction. Suddenly flustered, Misaki worried about her current fitness. Though unsure about fighting again, she still prepared for the journey ahead. Determined, Misaki declared her resolve to fight on the front lines. She couldn't allow herself to be a burden to Ceres. Before Ceres could stop her, she turned with a smile and ran off, announcing her intent to train. At a rocky field, she met with several women. Misaki apologized for gathering them on short notice. One of them remarked on how sudden it was, while another wasn't surprised, knowing Misaki's habit of acting quickly. Facing a rock golem alone, Misaki explained she needed to regain her strength. Her companions offered a defensive buff support and lighthearted encouragement, though some preferred cheering with tea from the sidelines. Standing firm before the massive golem, Misaki raised her sword. With a determined shout, she launched her attack. Her blade struck the stone beast with force. Dust exploded from the impact, but the battle wasn't over yet. From the sidelines, one companion noted how Misaki's prime strength once ended such fights with a single blow. Struggling, Misaki pushed against the golem's weight. Her strength faltered, and she admitted the enemy was heavier than expected. Seeing her struggle, one of the women stepped forward. Unable to watch any longer, she decided it was time to step in and assist. Haruka joined the fight beside Misaki, launching herself forward. Their coordination forced the golem to defend from both sides. With excitement in her eyes, Haruka admitted she had also been craving action. She attacked without hesitation. Inspired by Haruka's energy, Misaki gripped her sword tighter. She knew she couldn't afford to fall behind, not when Ceres was watching. While Haruka distracted the enemy, Misaki delivered strong blows. Their strategy worked. Disruption and pressure kept the golem unbalanced. In the past, Misaki had trained with passion, but her efforts went unnoticed. Marriage hadn't brought her the recognition she once hoped for. Misaki recalled the days she spent with Ceres in the store. Those memories, filled with laughter and promises, gave her strength. Gripping her sword tightly, she shouted with renewed determination. This time, she wasn't holding back. Her blade came crashing down. The ground cracked beneath her swing, sending shock waves through the towering golem. From a distance, her companions watched the result. Her strike landed hard, drawing praise and sparking comments about her old strength, returning. She stood tall, calm and composed. No matter what challenges awaited or emotions Ceres held, she resolved to face them all without hesitation. Ceres stood before the dress shop, staring at the elegant gown displayed in the window. A silent resolve formed. Inside, he praised the tailor's quick work and paid extra. His gratitude was sincere. This meant something important. Evening settled as Ceres prepared to return. Unable to ride back at night, he gauged his stamina and readied a magical return route. With air walk, he launched himself skyward, calling Misaki's name in thought. His pace quickened with purpose. As he dashed through the air, Ceres reflected. Misaki's quiet kindness reminded him of Shizuko, grounding his feelings with clarity. Misaki stood beside Shizuko, and their features were compared. Shizuko's traits hinted at a distant Japanese ancestry. Despite having no such lineage, Misaki's composure and grace reminded Ceres of traditional ideals, dignified, calm, and pure. He remembered her gentle embrace. Her willingness to accept everything brought him peace during moments of uncertainty. Though lacking healing magic, Misaki's care was unmatched. She offered warmth and comfort before anyone else thought to act. Ceres smiled with newfound resolve. Now able to call her his wife, he vowed to cherish and protect her with all he had. Ceres made a firm vow. He would support Misaki fully, letting her live without restraint. Without slowing, he raced through the night sky. His goal was clear: reach Misaki and protect the life they chose. Misaki examined the worn-down gate, its creaks revealing years of neglect. Inside, she inspected the sword, quietly acknowledging the disrepair. Ceres approached just as she finished her assessment. He returned from somewhere without clear explanation, brushing off her concern with a nervous smile. He leaned closer, his voice lowering. A strange request followed. He asked her to meet him alone at the church. Though confused by the odd invitation, Misaki didn't press further. Later she arrived at the church as requested. The door creaked open without resistance. Finding it already unlocked added to the mystery, raising more questions than answers in her mind. The church remained quiet, just as Misaki expected. Her steps echoed as she searched the pews. Suddenly, something unexpected caught her eye. She froze, lips parted, and her hands rose to cover the shock on her face. Bathed in soft light, a pristine white dress stood waiting at the altar. Misaki approached slowly, unable to take her eyes off it. A gentle smile appeared as realization set in. The gesture surprised her deeply. Wearing such a dress again had never crossed her mind. Behind her, the door creaked open. Ceres entered, now dressed in a formal white suit. Under the moonlit sky, their silent meeting had just begun. Misaki stood beneath the soft light, the dress fitting perfectly around her form. She hesitated, unsure. Ceres, still dressed in white, offered a simple compliment. His expression held sincerity without hesitation. He admitted he couldn't prepare everything, but she responded with warmth. Her heart quietly stirred with gratitude. Memories surfaced as he recalled their shared past. Running the shop together had meant much more to him than she realized. She remained still, overwhelmed by his final words. Her expression softened, touched by the honesty in his eyes. Tears welled in Misaki's eyes as emotions surged. Ceres' words had reached the depths of her heart. Without hesitation, he knelt and extended his hand. His voice was steady as he made his proposal. She smiled softly, reached forward, and gently accepted. Her answer came without pause, a quiet, confident yes. Before he could respond, his balance faltered. Her hand tightened around his, steadying him as he stumbled forward. Apparently, the magic he'd used earlier hadn't worn off properly. Mid-fall, he questioned if he'd overused his skill again. A sudden noise echoed through the church. Misaki rushed to find Ceres collapsed on the floor. He regained consciousness slowly, confused. Her arms supported him as she urged him to rest and not push further. Gratitude lit her expression. His efforts hadn't gone unnoticed, and she felt the need to return that kindness. Ceres responded gently. Her presence, her answer, and her warmth had already given him more than enough. A teasing smirk formed on her lips. She commented on his condition, breaking the moment with light embarrassment. While helping with supplies, Misaki recalled moments from the past. Her expression suggested familiarity with his lingering gaze. Later they sat facing one another. A question hung between them, tentative but bold, inviting trust. Ceres tried to respond, words catching in his throat. Misaki waited quietly, her presence steady and calm. Without speaking further, she moved gently. Her gesture, though reserved, held an unmistakable openness and emotional weight. Before anything progressed, she made a modest request. Ceres, flustered but earnest, nodded in quiet agreement. Within the quiet room, closeness grows as boundaries blur, hands lingering too long, surprise mixing with restraint. Heat rises steadily, breath quickens, resolve weakens, and awareness sharpens as attention centers on sensations rather than thoughts. Despite the setting's weight, shared guilt intertwines with desire, creating dangerous intimacy where hesitation falters and trust forms briefly. Choice replaces doubt as initiative shifts, vulnerability exposed, control rebalanced, and emotions surface openly, transforming conflict into acceptance while past betrayals momentarily lose their power over both hearts and memories. Afterward, calm settles gently, reflection follows, and satisfaction mingles with uncertainty, leaving a changed bond, heavier with consequences. Pressure builds as closeness deepens, posture shifts forward, control wavers, and tension sharpens, while awareness narrows. Movement grows urgent, hands steady positions, shared rhythm forms, and physical proximity heightens vulnerability, pushing hesitation aside as both commit fully guided by trust rather than caution or retreat possible. Weight shifts and closeness intensifies, emotions surface without restraint, and reliance replaces doubt. Initiative changes hands, balance adjusts, and acceptance settles in, transforming uncertainty into resolve, while vulnerability remains exposed. After intensity subsides, calm lingers, reflection follows, and the connection endures altered, marked by consequence. Intensity surged as she leaned forward, breath unsteady, heart racing. Their closeness left little room for hesitation, and physical signals replaced spoken thoughts. She gradually lowered herself over him, unfamiliar vulnerability mirrored in her face. There was no regret, only a strange clarity in her expression. While resting against him, she whispered her thanks. Emotions once buried now surfaced, giving weight to a private moment neither had planned for. Later, in different attire and setting, she brought up something simple, a practical need for their journey ahead, returning them to shared goals. Seated beside each other, they looked ahead with new resolve. Talk shifted to future challenges, new bonds, and the adventures waiting beyond. She offered a warm, steady smile, eyes filled with calm certainty. A decision had already been made. Clad in her new gear, she stepped forward, extending her hand with conviction, choosing her path as a defender. He met her gaze, surprised at first, then nodded with quiet trust. A new understanding settled between them. Both returned together, now united by more than circumstance. Her words carried hope for what came next. With the team assembled, discussion turned to future goals. Their journey wasn't just personal, it had become a shared mission. A bold proposal surfaced during their discussion: leave the village behind and take Ceres with them, reshaping everything. Doubt lingered. Leaving might not stop the others from returning. More decisive actions needed consideration. The group's energy shifted. One expressed impatience to act. Another hinted at proving Ceres' worth beyond past ties. Ceres remained quiet, thoughts pulled back by lingering memories. Familiar faces still held a place in his heart. His companions, however, were resolute. They saw things differently, determined to reveal hard truths Ceres had yet to accept. Ceres stood surrounded by women who had all been hurt by the same person. Though he once stayed silent to avoid conflict, he could no longer ignore what had been done. A sharp voice cut through the tension as one woman unleashed her anger. With firm conviction, she denounced Kazuma's actions, labeling him a disgrace. Another woman, calm yet weary, urged Ceres to see through the lies. Kaito, once praised for strength, had only worn a mask of virtue. A shadow of past abuse lingered in her gaze. She spoke with quiet resolve, naming him for what he was, smiling grimly. The last woman echoed their judgment. The women stood tall, their stern expressions surrounding Ceres. He hesitated, sensing they were being harsh for his sake. Shizuko calmly explained that she had retrieved the money Ceres had once entrusted to Kazuma. Shocked, Ceres reacted with disbelief. He raised his voice, defending his decision. That money had meant something he believed it supported a dream. Without hesitation, a sharp slap interrupted his protest. The short-haired woman, clearly fed up, called out his foolishness. As Ceres sat stunned on the floor, she looked him straight in the eye. Her words softened, recognizing his kindness, but her gaze remained firm, warning him not to let that kindness blind him again. The women stood firm, rejecting any notion of debt or obligation. To them, Kazuma didn't deserve gratitude, let alone money. Shizuko posed a simple but piercing question. If those three were trustworthy allies, why had Ceres never received payment for his efforts? Attempting to justify himself, Ceres recalled how he had chosen to support them. His reasoning came from loyalty, not logic. In a different scene, gold stacked high, revealing the true scale of the wealth involved. While others profited, Ceres had received nothing. The truth unfolded slowly, though the money had been handed to the families. Something felt off. While the women stood quietly, the truth became clear: those men had taken everything and shared nothing. No effort had been made to divide the wealth. Despite fair alternatives, greed had guided their choice. Shizuko clarified their intent. They didn't seek to erase Ceres' experiences, but needed him to see reality. In his memory, one of the men once showed him kindness. That past moment didn't align with the present betrayal. Standing firm, Shizuko revealed the lasting selfishness of those men. Even abandoned by their wives, they continued hoarding wealth. Ceres had to face who they truly were. Ceres acknowledged the truth: what they did wasn't right. They had fed him, taught him, and spent time with him. Looking away, he hesitated. A thought formed slowly, weighed down by conflicting feelings and painful clarity. Eventually, he spoke from the heart. All the wealth in the world meant nothing. Those four women were all he truly desired. The women reacted with a mix of surprise and resignation. While others chased shallow dreams of power and status, Ceres had chosen something else. Ceres shared a meal with the four women, smiling warmly. Life with them was more fulfilling than any reward or title he could imagine. Reflecting on the past, he admitted his feelings had never wavered. No other woman had ever drawn his attention the way they did. Since acting on those feelings seemed impossible, he chose another path, one where fate would bring them together through other means. Tears welled up as the women listened. Even one of them choosing him had seemed unlikely, yet all four stood by his side. Ceres spoke with conviction. No amount of gold could compare to a simple, joyful life with them. His heart belonged nowhere else, surrounded by smiles and warmth. Ceres realized he had been given something priceless. Their love was more than he ever dreamed of. Shizuko spoke firmly, dismissing the past and the men they once trusted. The present was all that mattered now, though calm on the surface. She admitted her own lingering anger. She had once wanted revenge for the suffering they endured. Each woman saw through the selfish futures their ex-husbands had planned. There was no place left for their children, or the values they abandoned. Together, they no longer needed to look back. Proving Ceres' worth building happiness, in spite of betrayal, was the sweetest form of retribution. Despite everything he said, Ceres felt unheard. The women seemed more focused on revenge than reason, their bitterness only deepening. Shizuko laughed about wanting to deal with Zector personally. Others joined in, joking darkly about his fate. Needing time to reflect, Ceres left town. Alone in a neighboring village, he sorted through conflicting feelings. He thought of the men who had once claimed to love them. Revenge didn't sit right with him, but doing nothing wasn't an option either. A plan began to form. His path brought him to a slave market. The sight left him uneasy. Something or someone inside would become the first step in whatever came next. A realization struck Ceres. The ex-husbands were likely preparing to purchase young slaves that suited their selfish desires. If he acted quickly, he might prevent it. A new plan formed, one that could shift everyone's perspective. He arrived at a familiar estate, determined to begin. If done right, all five of them could live without lingering resentment. Count Gamruda greeted him, surprised yet pleased. The old noble remembered Ceres' past and spoke of his rise to a dragon slayer. Ceres remained composed. With a calm voice and measured tone, he acknowledged the Count's concern and handed over something important: an offer, perhaps, or a challenge yet to be revealed. Ceres presented a set of shimmering water dragon scales. The sight immediately drew the Count's attention. Gamruda, impressed by the rare item, offered a hefty sum. Ceres refused payment, explaining it was a gift. The scales had been taken from the first dragon Ceres ever slew, specifically from the base of its neck. Offering them was his way of repaying a long-standing debt. Humbled, the Count hesitated. He couldn't recall any favor significant enough to warrant such a valuable present. The orphaned boy had never forgotten how the village embraced him. That kindness, Ceres believed, stemmed from Gamruda's fair rule. No amount of gold could match that. Count Gamruda got straight to the point. He asked if Ceres had come only to talk. Ceres shook his head. He revealed his purpose. Someone had been sentenced to the mines for tax evasion, and that someone was Zector. Ceres made a surprising request. He offered to pay the unpaid taxes in full. In return, he asked the Count to release Zector from punishment. With a thoughtful look, Ceres reflected on Zector's name. Though their history was bitter, he was determined to act differently. The count questioned his motives. Zector's reputation in the village was terrible, and no one would have bothered to save him. Ceres admitted to himself that part of his decision was strategic. Zector had a role to play in his future plans, even if the motivation wasn't purely selfless. Still, he couldn't ignore the past. Zector had once looked after him during childhood. That kindness lingered in Sarah's memory, deserving some form of repayment. Gameruda finally agreed. The dragon scales would cover Zector's debt. Soon after, a servant arrived with the prisoner. Zector, worn from labor, stood at the threshold. Seeing Ceres again caught Zector off guard. His voice cracked as he said the name, unsure whether this was rescue or another judgment to face. Zector lowered his head, tears welling up as he apologized. Ceres remained quiet for a moment, then simply told him they would return to the village. As they walked through the fields, Ceres's tone changed. He confronted Zector about selling Shizuko, seeking an answer that had haunted him. With guilt on his face, Zector recalled an old promise made during childhood. Ceres remembered the moment clearly. In that dark place, fate had brought Shizuko back into his life. Zector quietly processed it all. Ceres pressed him further. Regret wasn't enough. If he truly understood what he had done, an apology to her was the first step, one Ceres wasn't sure he wanted to witness. As they approached the village, Ceres reflected on what lay ahead. Zector's presence would affect the future, and explaining things to Shizuko properly was unavoidable. Nervously, Zector asked to have Ceres by his side. Ceres, unamused, denied him immediately. He was scared too. Shizuko opened the door, smiling warmly as she welcomed Ceres home. Her tone quickly shifted when she noticed who stood beside him. Recognition struck instantly. Zector braced himself, unable to speak. Shizuko stared, stunned and silent for only a second before rage began to rise. In a furious eruption, Shizuko unleashed her long, suppressed wrath. The earth cracked beneath her feet as she roared his name, Zector. Shizuko's grin stretched wide, eyes glowing with intensity. Zector stood frozen, realizing his punishment was just beginning now. Dark energy crackled around her body as she stood tall, eyes glowing with restrained fury. Smiling with unsettling calm, she stared down her target. Confidence twisted her expression as she recalled the humiliation he once inflicted. The coward flinched under her glare, staggering backward. He recalled how he'd sold her off for coin and indulgence. Women from the household emerged, expressions hard. None showed pity. Each word from them carved deeper into his shame. No one welcomed him. Another figure calmly observed, unmoved by the scene. His intentions were clear. Vengeance demanded tools, not mercy. Ceres gave his final instruction, calm and indifferent. As long as no one died, the rest was permitted. Surrounded by a group of determined women, he collapsed to his knees, their eyes burned with purpose. Screams erupted from the house, echoing through the peaceful village. Ceres reclined nearby, unfazed by the chaos. As a child, his heart leaned toward the warmth of older women, mothers of his friends. Others would have buried such feelings, but he clung to them. Life, strangely, offered him that path after all. Now surrounded by those very women, Ceres found comfort. The affection he once thought unreachable had become real. Determination filled Ceres's eyes. Protecting those who stood beside him meant making hard decisions without regret. Zector collapsed, his body barely holding together. Shock registered across Ceres's face as he rushed toward him. The women stood calmly. One had already used magic to keep the man alive. No further harm followed. Despite everything, Ceres tried to believe they had shown restraint. Their mercy, he hoped, hadn't gone too far. Redemption wasn't denied. Zector now lived under the village chief's care, working and striving to rebuild his life. Ceres stood before the women, his expression serious. Each of them listened as he addressed the group. He revealed his plan to travel and act alone. Revenge would continue, but this time on his own terms. No details followed. Trusting their bond, he simply asked them to leave everything in his hands for now. The next day, Ceres arrived at a new location. Several men awaited him, surprised by his sudden offer. A deal was struck. Orkman, a towering intermediary, agreed to assist him with the arrangements. Concerns were voiced, but Ceres remained firm. A group of men stood together, expressing gratitude. They had gathered to offer Ceres a gift of thanks. Zector hesitated as the gesture reached him. Memories of his past surfaced. Ceres reminded him of who he once was and urged him to value the chance he'd been given. Orkman and Ceres unveiled their preparation. Inside the tent waited a group selected with care and purpose. One by one, the women stepped forward. Each introduced herself, bringing surprise and excitement to the recipients. Later, the village chief offered Ceres a title. Smiling, he politely declined. Recognition wasn't what he sought. Confusion spread across her face. The The scene before her was far from what she had expected. Others observed the cheerful mood in town. Former strangers now walked together, laughing and clearly content. Ceres offered a quiet explanation. His decision to pair the elf with the village chief was intentional, meant to unsettle Zekt. She listened carefully. Restrictions placed on heroes meant Zekt could never claim slaves or form ties with non-humans. Despite everything, Zekt appeared elated beside a cat-eared girl. His happiness unsettled those watching from afar. Ceres explained Zektor's new situation. His bride came from a beastman tribe known for extreme jealousy. If caught glancing at another woman, punishment followed instantly. Zektor faced immediate consequences from his possessive wife. At worst, she might go as far as biting off his fingers. Fear visibly took hold of him. She knew her flaws but embraced them. Constant affection wasn't a desire. It was a demand she enforced without compromise. For what Zektor did in the past, this was fitting. A lifetime bound to loyalty was his sentence. Although it felt awkward, Ceres admitted the elf girl was more beautiful than his childhood friends. Zektor's situation drew attention. The irony stung. His father had a youthful, stunning bride, nearly the same age, smiling wide. Zektor remained unaware of the looming troubles. Those watching offered quiet sarcasm and good luck. Elsewhere, another concern surfaced. Questions arose about Kazuma's slave, suggesting there might be an issue worth noticing. The girl had served nobility as a cooking maid. While impressive, her skills might not suit Kazuma's true needs. She pointed out Kazuma's real need: a partner like a reliable sister, one who could manage his life. The maid, sitting quietly, admitted her limitations. Aside from cooking, she felt unqualified for much else. Still, hope remained. Together, Kazuma and the maid might overcome their mismatched pairing and reach something meaningful. Another conversation shifted attention. Curiosity turned toward a different girl, raising questions about her suitability and role. That girl made her stance clear. A hardened mercenary, she sought strength, not manners, and wouldn't soften easily. Ceres noted how Kaido mistreated gentle Seo in the past. Now he'd face a partner he couldn't control. The new bride didn't hold back. Each punch landed with meaning. Communication in its most direct form. Observers hoped it would curb his aggression. Meanwhile, another woman asked Ceres about her ex-husband's fate. Shuto's new bride, a noble's daughter, wasn't just beautiful, she was dominant. Brains and strength both belonged to her. Misaki reflected on their dynamic. Shuto's twisted nature clashed with her honesty, but somehow, they had to make it work. With a calm smile, the noble girl listed her skills: drugs, whips, manipulation, but assured she wouldn't resort to murder. Her partner listened uneasily. Ceres clarified the intent. These women weren't just companions, they were the cure to each man's flaws. As the group looked closer, they noticed something unsettling. The girls resembled people they all knew too well. Standing together, the new brides shared striking features. Their looks weren't coincidental, they mirrored others with eerie precision. For the daughters, the situation was disturbing. Their fathers now walked with younger women who looked just like them. Daughters returned home only to be disturbed by scenes they couldn't unsee. The atmosphere had shifted entirely. With their family bonds severed, nothing held them there. Plans were made to leave the village behind for good. A new start awaited them in the capital. Their focus shifted to finding a space to share together. Support came from all sides. Ceres promised to handle the financial burden, but the women offered help in return. Their unity deepened in private. What began as shared survival evolved into mutual trust, affection, and connection. The group discussed how to handle their nightly arrangements. Though playful, their suggestions hinted at serious competition. Later, all five shared the bed. Affection filled the space, though not without flustered protests and awkward laughter. With farewells exchanged, Ceres and the women departed the village. Friends and former rivals wished them well. As the carriage moved forward, Ceres reflected silently. He knew that if Zekt rose in status, he wouldn't remain in the village for long. Ceres felt sure of one thing: if they ever returned, it wouldn't be by choice, but by necessity. The wagon rolled into the distance. If Zekt failed his quest, peace would never follow. Back in the capital, disorder consumed them. Surrounded by regret and ruin, their dreams slowly fell apart. After Ceres left, the party fell into disarray, coordination broke down, and battles that were once easy turned into near defeats. Alone in thought, one of the former companions faced the harsh reality. With guilt weighing heavily on his shoulders, he acknowledged that only one option remained to fix their broken unity. The women, already understanding the situation, voiced the unspoken. They predicted what needed to be done, offering one of them to bring Ceres back. Confirmation followed. Among those present, only two had a direct connection to Ceres: Despite hesitation, the man confessed. If it would restore what was lost, he would offer all three without regret. Understanding slowly dawned on the women. Regret showed in their eyes as they finally acknowledged their mistakes. Arrogance still lingered in Zek's mind. He viewed his former allies as lesser, dismissing their worth without hesitation. Ambitions fueled his thoughts. Zek dreamed of victory, fame, and royal brides once the Demon King was defeated. Meanwhile, the women stood united. They chose to give themselves to Ceres, hoping their gesture would be enough to bring him back. Past pride gave way to humility. Lyda reflected on her long resentment. Childhood jealousy had shaped her cruelty, yet Ceres had never responded in anger. Mel looked back with regret. Enchanted by her status as a hero's concubine, she had forgotten the one who truly mattered. Memories of Ceres' kindness came flooding back. When she feared rejection, he had offered comfort without hesitation. This frustration welled up in Lyda. At first, Zek hadn't meant anything to her, but after giving in to his pursuit, she had grown attached. Thinking of Ceres brought her peace. His maturity and calm presence made her feel understood. Compared to life as Zek's wife, she felt she'd be far happier by Ceres' side. With shifting hearts behind him, Zek decided to act. He requested permission to contact the man they all once cast aside, Ceres. Zek's request to reach Ceres was rejected without hesitation. The royal decree emphasized that a hero must always press forward, never pause, never retreat. Faced with opposition, Zek protested. However, he was met with harsh reality. The castle now sheltered refugees. 2 children sobbed in the ruins of their village, victims of a delayed response. Had Zek left the city earlier, the orc attack might have been prevented. The gravity of their mistake sank in. Zek stood speechless, and the others stared in silent horror. Frustration boiled over as Zek blamed himself. Nothing had gone as planned. With urgency replacing pride, he vowed to leave immediately. Time was no longer on their side. The newly assigned room glowed with elegance. Each woman took in the luxurious surroundings, impressed by the change from their previous hardships. Preparations for the night began. With light-hearted energy, they moved the beds closer, jokingly calling it their shared love nest. Though fatigue from travel lingered, the group remained spirited. Plans to bathe and rest were discussed, but the atmosphere suggested they weren't quite ready to sleep yet. Ceres stood flustered. As Shizuko expressed her quiet determination to be with him, his heart skipped. Before the moment could deepen, the others interrupted, annoyed by his drifting thoughts. They pulled him back with playful boos. Dim lamplight frames a confident woman guiding another closer. Expressions flushed with anticipation, bodies drawn together. Contact deepens as positions change, breaths uneven, focus narrowing. Weight shifts and hands steady movements. Attention passes to another participant. Waiting gives way to resolve. Composure mixes with eagerness as closeness is accepted. Momentum resumes with renewed intensity. Roles aligning naturally. Control alternates. Reactions sharpen. And the room holds heat as effort peaks. Afterward, awareness lingers in quiet observation. Satisfaction and fatigue settle together. Tension easing into calm as the scene closes on shared understanding, with steady breathing and composed expressions remaining present. Rhythmic movement continued between them. Bodies aligned and coordination unbroken. Her gaze stayed locked on him, calm but assertive. Fatigue began to surface. Surrounded on all sides, he struggled to maintain his pace. Expressions grew softer as concern replaced anticipation. Time passed. Days later, the group took quiet refuge in a resting place. Covered in light clothes, they remained still, reflecting in silence. Recovery brought new thoughts. One voiced desire for shared adventures, while another accepted the bond he had forged. Understanding deepened. They acknowledged the effort he put in for their sake. A dragon hunt awaited. He walked ahead in silence, unaware of the quiet conversation behind him. Those watching him understood his drive wasn't rooted in pride, but in a desire to protect. Later, the women gathered again, resting in the warmth of the stones. Though grateful, a sense of helplessness stirred. Frustration reached a peak. Together, they confronted him with determination, unwilling to remain passive any longer. To their surprise, he welcomed the offer without resistance, from a high place. They surveyed the land dragons had been dealt with in secret, quietly clearing danger from the capital's shadow without ever asking for thanks. Towering and armored in stone, the boulder dragon loomed ahead. Without hesitation, he advanced to face it. Cold wind howled as the water and ice dragon encircled him. Snow and scale clashed under pressure. Lightning cracked the sky. Mid-air, he met the Storm King dragon, striking through chaos with precision. Dozens more had fallen dragons and wyverns alike. Estimates blurred. Riding above it all, he guessed the count. Elsewhere, the women stared in disbelief. With that many victories and wealth, they questioned its true purpose. He revealed a thoughtful surprise custom hunting gear made specifically for them. Everything had already been prepared in advance. Excitement grew as each woman received her equipment. Crafted with care, the designs suited them perfectly. With weapons in hand, confidence returned. For some, it felt like stepping back into a role long missed. He proposed an easier target to begin with, considering their time away. They agreed without hesitation, eager to move. Once they arrived, something felt off. Shizuko, expected to take a support role, stood oddly calm as enemies approached. Without hesitation, Shizuko raised her staff and unleashed a radiant spell that pulsed outward in force. The wave struck directly. Several ogres collapsed before they could reach her, overwhelmed by the sudden impact. His eyes widened. Never before had he seen magic shaped like that. It wasn't ordinary healing. Instead of restoring life, the spell reversed its nature. Her technique siphoned vitality from the targets. Calm and composed, she confirmed the truth. What others used to save, she mastered to dismantle. While climbing the mountain path, she voiced a quiet fear. The idea of withering away unsettled her deeply. Surrounded by frozen enemies, she stood calmly. Her question hung in the air, seeking Ceri's silent agreement. He gave it some thought. Facing death by freezing, in his view, felt equally horrifying. On the battlefield, 2 others charged in. Their strikes were merciless and overwhelming, cutting down the enemy lines effortlessly. What remained were stunned opponents, now trembling. Ceres offered a blunt observation, acknowledging the psychological toll left behind. Ogres charged in, only to find themselves outmatched. The women responded swiftly, blades steady, and steps sure. When the dust settled, the ground was silent. None of them even looked tired. To Ceres, it barely felt like a proper battle. Their calm expressions held no pride. He acknowledged their skill honestly. Each one was stronger than someone he once knew well. Despite the compliment, they explained their limits. While dragons proved too much in the past, ogres were manageable. Ceres questioned the past. If their abilities were so refined, why had they stepped away from it all? Her quiet smile held the answer, one he would understand in time. As the sun dipped behind the cliffs, the 4 women sat quietly. Years ago, they fought to protect others, but that path led them to unexpected conflict. Choosing to walk away, they sought normalcy. Traveling as a group presented its own challenges, especially without support or acceptance. Ceres understood now, the world they moved through had never been fair. Dangers surrounded them not only from monsters, but from how society viewed their strength. His warning wasn't without reason. Slaying hundreds might draw stronger enemies. One woman raised an eyebrow, confused by the mention of a king. Realization came too late. The strongest opponent had already fallen without fanfare, taken down in a single move. None of them had even noticed at the time. Shizuko offered a playful gesture, unaware that her light-hearted expression only deepened Ceres's realization. Their strength wasn't just impressive, it was overwhelming. He followed behind them quietly. Despite their relaxed walk, unease stirred within him. Their power was unmatched, and even he felt it best not to provoke them. Elsewhere, a dark pit seethed with unease. One voice echoed from within, warning of a growing crisis. Their numbers were falling, picked off steadily without mercy. A trembling creature delivered a report. It wasn't an army, not even the hero's party. Every disaster traced back to a single figure. From a throne, an older man processed the news. That one person had slain even legendary dragons. He spoke only one name, Black Dragon, and deemed this hunter too dangerous to leave alone. A silent order was given. The man at the center became the subject of interest, watched, tracked, and evaluated from the shadows. Elsewhere, the directive turned lethal. One figure, with a twisted grin, decided that observation wouldn't be enough. Descending the stone steps, the demon appeared visibly irritated. He had received orders he deemed beneath him. Despite centuries of power and destruction, he was sent to confront a mortal. Perched above the ruined city, he surveyed the corpses below. Memories of past slaughter returned. He had wiped out entire kingdoms long ago. Hovering midair, wings outstretched, he grumbled at the task. Crushing weaklings offered no thrill. Yet defiance wasn't an option. From a distance, another presence observed. The old ruler of Hades, feared even by dragons, remained unmatched in power. With resignation, the demon flew toward his destination. Finishing the mission quickly was the only escape from punishment and boredom. Suspicion grew in his chest as the unease of being watched persisted. Though he tried to ignore it, the feeling clung to him for days. Even surrounded by strong allies like Shizuko, he couldn't shake the dread. A terrifying presence loomed, hidden from everyone else. He decided to distance himself. Standing near the others only heightened his worry. Avoiding unnecessary risk, he made up an excuse and planned to confront the threat alone. The women accepted his words without suspicion. Smiles and casual farewells met his false explanation. Alone in the forest, he stopped and scanned the area. Without hesitation, he called out, ready to face the silent stalker trailing him. The boy confronted the figure trailing him, unfazed by the hostile intent. Keen perception allowed him to detect danger easily, and he faced the intruder with calm certainty. Mocked for his assumptions, the boy learned the truth. His opponent wasn't a demon or a king, but a dragon. Irritation flared in the dragon's eyes. He despised being compared to mere demons. Pride surged as he emphasized the difference in their rank and power. To dragons of his level, even the Demon King held little weight. Ceres knelt, introducing himself with humility. Despite the massive power gap, the dragon acknowledged his feats, recognizing him as a warrior worthy of respect. Ceres issued a formal challenge, his voice steady. The dragon accepted, offering his respect in return. Dragons valued power, and Ceres had proven his strength against their kind. Though blood had been spilled, the duel became a way to settle matters with dignity. Feigning humility, Ceres tried to withdraw. He referred to himself as unworthy, hoping to defuse the situation without combat. Instead of walking away, the dragon pointed to a crater-topped mountain nearby. That would be their battleground, chosen with purpose. Terms were set: victory wouldn't require defeat in combat alone. If Ceres could escape to the forest, he'd win. A smirk crossed the dragon's face as his scales began to surface. Though he had promised not to dragonify during the duel, his transformation triggered before battle even began. Fully transformed, the black dragon launched into the sky, his immense wings tearing through the air. Ceres lay helpless, overwhelmed by the sheer difference in strength. Panic crept in as he realized the battlefield was kilometers from the forest. Elsewhere, Shizuko sensed something was wrong. Concern filled her expression as she wondered whether Ceres had faced danger alone. Unease spread among the women. Despite Ceres's attempt to reassure them, they all sensed something deeper. Signs of Ceres's movement pointed toward the forest. The others, growing anxious, followed his trail without delay. Worry turned into alarm as they called his name, shouting through the darkness. None of them wanted to be left behind while danger loomed nearby. Their approach was quickly halted. A figure floated above the trees, warning them not to interfere. Before they could react, the stranger revealed his identity: Bauer, the Hades dragon, ruler of the underworld itself. His presence demanded silence. Suspicion flared, they demanded answers, accusing him of targeting Ceres. Amused, Bauer dismissed the tension with a remark, observing how loud and determined they were. A massive dragon descended from the sky, its overwhelming presence shaking the ground. The dragon's voice boomed, declaring its intentions clearly. Their conflict, it claimed, was with Ceres alone, not with them. Unintimidated, the women responded sharply. They made it clear that they had no patience for senseless violence and demanded the dragon retreat. Shizuko's eyes narrowed, her worry deepening. Her thoughts drifted to Ceres, who was somewhere facing this nightmare on his own. Meanwhile, the black dragon's human form hunted Ceres with violent intent. Fiery breath erupted, forcing the young warrior to evade behind crumbling rocks. Hovering above the battlefield, the dragon, winged man, roared with fury. Ceres dashed behind the rocky terrain, trying to maintain distance. Shocked, he pointed out the obvious: his opponent had broken the rules by using dragon wings. A moment of awkwardness passed. The dragon acknowledged the truth with a shrug. No denial, no apology, just a quiet concession. Breath grew heavier as Ceres ran. Desperation took hold. The forest felt farther with every step. Before long, the pursuer appeared right in front of him. There was no more room to run. Ceres clenched his jaw, reaching for a hidden option he had hoped not to use so soon. Ceres steadied his breath and activated a hidden technique, one designed specifically for overwhelming threats. With precise timing, Ceres launched a small pouch directly at the dragon warrior's face. Pain surged instantly. The attacker's widened eyes betrayed his shock and agony as he screamed uncontrollably. Ceres revealed the trick. Instead of poison, he had used powdered chili and wasabi, ingredients immune to magical neutralization. Seizing the opening, Ceres activated airwalk and sprang into motion. Magic couldn't block physical pain, and now, with his opponent temporarily blinded, he prepared to launch the next strike in this high-stakes duel. Ceres sprinted through the air using his technique. The forest entrance came into view. Victory was close. A sudden strike tore through his back. The dragon warrior, faster than expected, lashed out with rage and claws, bloodied but unbroken. Ceres cried out in defiance. Anger surged. He refused to fall without making his voice heard. His body crashed through the foliage. Pain radiated through his chest. He realized he had reached the forest barely. Breathing heavily, The dragon warrior stood still. Regret flickered in his words. He hadn't meant to finish the battle like this. But in the end, he broke the rules. The dragon warrior stood beside Ceres' fallen form. With a grim voice, he declared the duel's outcome. Ceres had won. To honor that outcome, he drove his own claw into his side. Blood spilled freely, proof of Ceres' triumph over a dragon lord. As further tribute, he offered his liver and blood sacred gifts among dragonkind. With those words, he turned and walked away. The burden of survival, victory, or failure now rested entirely on Ceres' shoulders, far away. The others sensed something was wrong. Without hesitation, they drew their weapons. Their comrade was in danger, and they refused to stay idle any longer. The battle resumed with explosive force. One of the women unleashed a wind-based technique gale drill, cutting the air with deadly precision. Another followed up, instantly, slamming down with fireclaw. Flames erupted, roaring toward the towering enemy, but the attack barely dented its hide. Their efforts met an unshaken opponent. The Hades dragon loomed, unaffected. The women's expressions fell as the reality sank and he was on another level. Doubt took root. They realized they stood no chance against something divine. Still, doing nothing wasn't an option. One stepped forward, voice steady, despite the pressure. With blades lowered, they made a plea to the dragon, requesting mercy. Tears welled in her eyes as she made a desperate plea. Her voice cracked. She begged the dragon not to kill Ceres. The Hades dragon paused, unmoving. Silence followed her words, and the group held their breath. Tension crackled in the air. Without responding directly, the dragon turned and issued a command. He told them to go to the mountain. An unexpected shift. Without hesitation, the group sprang into motion. Their feet hit the ground in unison, running toward where Ceres had fallen. Time was running out. They reached his side and cried out his name, panic on their faces. Ceres lay motionless, bloodied and still. Panic filled their voices as they leaned over Ceres, desperately calling out to him. He wasn't responding, but they refused to give up. Slowly, his eyes opened. Blurred faces surrounded him, filled with concern and relief. He mumbled weakly, unsure if he was truly alive. Blood covered his clothes, yet no visible wounds remained. One by one, the women realized he had somehow survived. Tears welled up. He was safe. Ceres sat up, dazed and confused. He had been certain the dragon's claws struck deep, but now he questioned whether the fatal blow had ever landed. He recalled the dream, his mother, long gone, and a man who resembled his father. It was peaceful, distant, and maybe, just maybe, the reason he'd returned. Ceres smiled awkwardly as he recounted the tale, telling people he had married 4 mothers, had left quite a few in shock. He remembered what happened after death, sent to the underworld without understanding why. He stood before dragon royalty, returning to the living world. He found comfort in the presence of those he cherished. He was back, safe, and felt certain no one would be hunting him anymore. Surrounded by smiling faces, he finally breathed easily. Every hardship had led to this quiet moment. His body was battered, clothes torn, and skin covered in dirt. Yet despite everything, he could still stand. At the hot spring entrance, the party pauses, unease settling as the hero departs, leaving watchful gazes. Paths diverge outside, foliage swallowing footsteps while suspicion grows. Signs hint at trouble as distance widens. Steam encloses the baths where he examines himself, heat lingering unnaturally, skin flushed without wounds, strength humming quietly. Movement through open pools reveals bodies at rest and training spirits, warmth sharpening awareness instead of sickness, energy pooling closer to resolve as night, airframes contemplation and purpose forming. Close focus tightens on his eyes, concern crystallizing as he recognizes the greater issue, an unseen cause demanding caution, preparation. Sitting in the cold water, he senses something is off. A strange warmth lingers below the surface. A nearby bather glances over, visibly surprised. The reaction deepens his discomfort and growing confusion. Other men begin to notice as well. The atmosphere shifts, awkward silence filling the steaming room. Looking down, his thoughts spiral. Uncertainty and alarm grip him as his body responds abnormally. A sudden realization strikes. Something unnatural has taken hold, triggering a deeper transformation than expected. After the intense clash with the Black Dragon, Ceres noticed unsettling changes within himself. His discomfort focused on his lower body, unrelenting and persistent. Trying to ignore it, he decided to return before concerns started to spread. Upon arriving, he was greeted warmly by the women of his party. Their calm presence and gentle smiles provided a moment of ease amidst his internal unease. One of them, more perceptive than the others, immediately asked about his condition. She explained that while tracking him, a massive dragon had appeared and pointed them in his direction. Ceres reassured the group that the danger had passed. though concern lingered in one of their gazes. Despite trying to act normal, his unease worsened. A strange tension gripped his body, leaving him visibly flustered. Later that evening, the women gathered with serious expressions, seemingly understanding the root of his condition. Alone in the room, Ceres struggled to contain himself. The lingering effects of the earlier battle had stirred something intense within, making restraint difficult. The women responded with unexpected tenderness. Surrounding him closely, they offered quiet reassurance and prepared to help ease the pressure he could no longer suppress. The group acknowledged Ceres' burden and offered their care. Surrounded by warmth, he allowed himself to rest, trusting their intentions. Tension steadily built as closeness intensified. The emotional strain from earlier battles gave way to a vulnerable moment, shared with one companion. Another stepped in, responding to Ceres' continued struggle. The atmosphere became heavier, as each person pushed themselves beyond comfort to support him. Fatigue grew, but the pace didn't slow. Each gesture carried more urgency, matched by the rising pressure between them. Even the most composed among them showed signs of strain. Despite exhaustion, they all stayed close. Bound by trust and a shared desire to help, the room remained dim as the hours passed. Ceres moved between them carefully, responding to each with quiet intensity. Despite how much time had passed, the restlessness within him refused to fade. Each effort only deepened the mystery of his lingering condition. Eventually, exhaustion set in. Some had reached their limits, unable to keep up with the demands of the night. Breathing slowed, bodies stilled, and the silence returned. Fatigue overtook the last of them. Though satisfied, they could hardly move. Worn down by the relentless pace, all strength had been spent. As Ceres sat quietly at the edge of the bed, the strange energy inside him finally subsided. While everyone else remained asleep from exhaustion, Ceres stood among them, oddly alert. Despite the intense night, his body showed no signs of fatigue or wear, with no need for rest. His thoughts turned to hunger. The quiet streets welcomed him as he set off in search of food. Soon, he arrived at a local tavern. Without hesitation, he ordered several large portions, much to the cook's surprise. Even after finishing multiple servings, he didn't feel satisfied. The staff grew uneasy as he continued ordering more, drawing attention from the other patrons. Eventually, the kitchen could no longer keep up, surrounded by empty plates. Ceres was politely asked to stop. The staff, visibly drained, pleaded for mercy. With his hunger finally sated, Ceres turned his focus toward training. His body felt lighter, leaner, and strangely energized. No matter how intensely he swung his blades, fatigue never came. His strikes grew sharper, even shattering stone with ease. Something within him had changed. His training was interrupted by a massive creature emerging from the rocky cliffs. A hulking form loomed unmistakably, a dragon, though unlike any he'd faced before. Despite the threat, he held his ground. Recalling the black dragon, Ceres tensed, wary of what this new one might bring. Then, without warning, a voice echoed in his mind. The dragon didn't roar, it spoke, addressing him as a protector, a king. Ceres attempted to respond to the dragon with his thoughts. Though uncertain, he decided to try communicating in the same silent way. The dragon, however, saw something different. In its eyes, Ceres wasn't human, but the embodiment of a powerful black dragon. Accepting what it perceived, the dragon addressed him with reverence, calling him a dragon lord left alone. Ceres reflected on his past. His death during the battle with the black dragon must have triggered something. Just as he tried to understand, another creature arrived, a wyvern. With no time to think further, he faced a new challenge. Unsure what would come next, the wyvern approached without hostility, pressing close as if seeking attention. Ceres hesitated, then slowly reached out to touch it, feeling no resistance. As he stood beside the resting beast, a realization took root. Some unknown force, perhaps tied to his survival, now prevented him from harming dragons. He reflected on what he had gained: a body enhanced beyond normal limits, and the ability to communicate with dragons. Regardless of origin, his new abilities would serve a purpose. If nothing else, he could protect those closest to him, his companions, his family, his wives. Elsewhere, rumors spread. A surge of dragons was reportedly approaching. Concern filled the air, and preparations began. One of the knights voiced his concern. Never before had he heard of dragons gathering in such numbers. The priest responded with uncertainty. No one knew the cause, but the dragons appeared to be fleeing, something driven by fear, not aggression. Unfortunately, their path pointed directly toward the city of Bushia. Without intervention, the population would face catastrophic danger. Despite the gravity of the request, the assembled party hesitated, as they were now, facing a horde of dragons, seemed almost impossible. Still, the priest reminded them of their roles. If they couldn't act alone, they had resources: the guild, the church, or the city's lord. The party's leader compared their indecision to Ceres' known decisiveness, striking a nerve. His frustration toward their hesitation was clear. In response, the Lord of Bushia offered full support. He recognized the crisis and promised knights and soldiers to aid the defense. However, planning proved difficult. The Lord asked for deployment details, but no clear strategy or leadership came from the hero's side. Zect confessed he had no answers. The city's forces would have to be managed without guidance. Some questioned the hero's lack of command experience. As doubts lingered, the sky filled with dragons. The threat had become real, massive and fast approaching. Time was running out. One of the women urged caution. Facing the dragons without the full army was reckless, but Zect refused to back down. Driven by pride, he insisted on holding the front line to him. Retreat was unacceptable. In comparison, he admitted his shortcomings. Others surpassed him in swordplay, magic, and healing, but none could match his will to lead. To Zect, bravery defined a hero. Fearlessness in the face of overwhelming odds was all that mattered. With determination, he charged into the fray. His strike connected, landing a devastating blow on a dragon. The battle had begun, and there was no turning back now. Zect's attack landed with force, shattering the dragon's defense. Confidence surged as he prepared for the next move. The moment didn't last. Surrounded by multiple dragons, his rallying cry fell short as panic began to rise. Meanwhile, the others struggled to keep up. One cast a barrier, barely protecting the group as fear took hold. Watching them falter, Zect realized bravery wasn't shared. Though he stood firm, the same could not be said of everyone else. Surrounded by dragons, 3 women stood within a glowing barrier. None appeared afraid despite the looming threat. Outside the dome, adventurers panicked as dragons approached. Their formation broke down as fear gripped their hearts. Zect, the supposed hero, watched the retreating backs of his allies. No one stayed beside him. Rushing forward alone, Zect swung his sword at the dragon. Blood sprayed, but the assault failed to stop it. Without hesitation, he pierced the beast's neck. Cold resolve lit his eyes as the creature collapsed. Zect wandered alone through the forest, his legs heavy and breath unsteady. The battle had drained everything he had, and with no strength left to stand, he collapsed onto the grass. His vision slowly returned, and the sound of wind through leaves reached his ears. Lying still, he stared upward with blank eyes, unsure how long he had been unconscious. Standing weakly, he touched his injured arm. The limb refused to move, pain radiating from the joint. From afar, the barrier remained active inside it. The 3 women sat safely, untouched by the chaos. Zect's gaze shifted to the bodies lying ahead, their silence telling enough. Swallowing back nausea, he steadied himself and muttered his next goal. Destruction filled the city's streets. Buildings stood shattered, and armored bodies lay scattered among rubble and blood. Zect arrived to find the city in ruins. A survivor reported grim news: the city's lord was dead. Before he could react, a stone struck him from the crowd, sharp pain flashing across his face. Anger flared among the people. A boy accused Zect directly, blaming him for his mother's fate. Others tried to intervene, urging calm, but the resentment had already taken hold. Surrounded by wary civilians, Zect defended his actions. He explained the dragons had been enemies they couldn't negotiate with. However, one man stepped forward with new information. The dragons hadn't attacked first, they were fleeing something. The man stepped forward, voice steady as he spoke hard truths. He explained that while the city's destruction couldn't be avoided, the loss of life might have been prevented. Zect's voice trembled as he tried to defend his decisions. He brought up the church's orders, hoping they would validate his actions. Tension flared as emotions boiled over, grabbing Zect by the collar. The man shouted in anger and frustration. Suddenly, Zect remembered the words clearly. The priest had never instructed him to engage in combat, only to stop or divert the dragons. Tears streamed down his face. Regret overwhelmed him. His mistake had cost lives, and nothing could undo it. Tears continued to fall as the man spoke harshly. According to him, the church had never expected Zect to win, and those who placed faith in him were foolish. Surrounded by silence, Zect knelt in the middle of the street. The people who once called him savior now ordered him to leave. Not far from the ruined city, the women remained protected behind their barrier. Their surroundings were littered with unconscious soldiers. Resolute, he approached the shimmering wall. His voice low, he asked for the barrier to be released. Shouting erupted as his patience snapped. Pounding the barrier, he demanded they open it. Emotions finally burst free. Inside a quiet room, the 3 women waited in silence. Zect entered without a word, his expression heavy. The orb lit up, revealing the image of Pope Romaris. The atmosphere turned tense as the Pope's eyes met Zect's with hesitation. Zect addressed the man on the screen. Speaking the Pope's name aloud, he showed no hostility. Emotion welled up in his voice. He attempted to offer an apology but stopped himself. Instead, he expressed understanding, stating that he held no hatred toward anyone for what had happened. Pope Romaris, unmoved by the self-blame, gave his reply. In his view, the deaths were inevitable. With a calm expression, Pope Romaris spoke directly. He explained that he had once made a promise with Lord Ceres. Surprised, Zect reacted with confusion. The Pope acknowledged the disbelief and clarified that Ceres had never shared this information. In another place and time, Ceres faced harsh judgment. A past failure had cost lives, and voices around him demanded accountability. Seated with his companions, Ceres gave his final remarks. He defended their efforts, stating that one of them had to act. A man stood and accused Ceres directly, his finger pointed, voice rising in anger. He condemned Ceres' inability to even offer an apology for the deaths that resulted from their mission. Ceres lashed out, demanding to know who had spread the idea of fighting the Demon King. The man who had argued with him tried to justify their position, blaming the system and its dangers. Unshaken, Ceres claimed he could end the war in a month. He offered a bold strategy and requested full authority. A plan titled All-Out War was proposed. Civilians and soldiers alike would abandon their daily lives to march directly to the Demon King's castle. The entire nation was to be mobilized. Ceres's strategy left no room for dissent. Those who refused to join or attempted to flee would face exile or death. Ceres proposed a plan that would involve all of humanity, insisting it was the only guaranteed way to win. Turning to Zek's situation, Ceres accused the leadership of sacrificing the hero's party. He argued that people preferred to remain uninvolved, letting others risk their lives instead. Though the Pope protested, Ceres pressed on. Replacing the few with the many, he claimed, would end the war swiftly. The Pope hesitated. A single word escaped him: please. His voice carried a tremble, the conviction in Ceres' reasoning beginning to shake his own. Admitting their fault, the Pope retracted his earlier promise. He couldn't accept the responsibility. Ceres delivered his final words without hesitation. If the world insisted on forcing responsibility onto them, then it had no right to complain about the consequences. Walking off, he left behind the authority figures, still clinging to their comfort. He condemned their hypocrisy, living peaceful lives, while demanding sacrifices from others. Back in the room, Zect sat quietly, absorbing the Pope's confession. Ceres's conviction had overwhelmed every argument. Memories flickered in Zekt's mind. Ceres walking away. The women who had stayed by his side. Realization struck hard. Regret filled his heart. He had cast out the one person who truly understood the weight he carried. Zect dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by regret. He finally realized that Ceres, the one he pushed away, had been the only person who truly understood them. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a new kind of atmosphere unfolded. One of the women, caught in a moment of closeness with Ceres. As the discussion continued, the others gathered in a relaxed setting, amused yet candid. One of the women made a bold prediction. She referenced Ceres's passionate nature, implying that such a trip could stir more than just warm water. Another woman saw the opportunity clearly. For her, it wasn't just leisure, it was a chance to grow even closer. The women sat together, openly sharing their frustrations. Repeatedly losing their private battles with Ceres had worn on their pride. One of them, driven by determination, resolved to not lose again. Her expression mixed focus with challenge, united by the same goal. All four stood together in silent agreement. They promised to satisfy him completely, not just for his sake. Later, while traveling in a carriage, two of the women discussed their destination. Kohain, known for its unusual origins, seemed like the perfect setting for rest and recovery after intense days. The talk turned light-hearted as they learned more about the local culture. Ceres shared that black eggs were a regional specialty. In the heart of the village, lively music echoed through the streets as two women played instruments, drawing smiles from the crowd. At the entrance to the resort town, the group arrived and took in the vibrant scenery. Standing together, the women admired the view, ready to enjoy Kohain's culture, comfort. Ceres and his new companions strolled through the vibrant marketplace, surrounded by colorful lanterns and curious sights. Intrigued by the local fashion, they stopped to observe women in floral-patterned outfits. Though the style seemed unusual, the group remained open-minded, curious about the culture they had stepped into. Upon reaching the grand entrance of Kohain Pavilion, they were greeted by two cheerful hostesses. Led up the stairs, the group admired the detailed architecture. One of them wondered if this structure had roots in Japan's ancient influence, marveling at its distinct and nostalgic design. As they ascended, an awkward moment arose when the guide's yukata revealed a little too much. After an awkward pause, one of the women tried to explain the confusion. With a straight face, she pointed out that wearing undergarments under a kimono was apparently not traditional. Inside the guest room, The group tried to brush off the moment. One of them noticed Ceres blushing, prompting a teasing question. Their attention shifted to the room itself, wide-eyed. One of them recognized the flooring style. Gathered on the floor, the party continued examining the details. The matte texture, wooden frame, and layout mirrored classic Japanese style when offered the bath. Ceres declined politely. Rather than relax immediately, he chose to explore the town first, curiosity outweighing comfort. Before heading out, the hostess kindly suggested they wear kimonos during their sightseeing for a more immersive experience. Surprised by the proposal, the women exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond to the unexpected request. Stepping into the lively streets, Ceres observed the architecture and atmosphere. The presence of a giant black egg caught his attention, hinting at local customs. As he walked ahead, someone called his name from behind. He turned to see one of the women hesitating to speak, clearly uncomfortable. Dressed in kimonos, the group felt self-conscious. They questioned their appearance and age for such attire, but accepted it for the moment. As they walked through town, two women whispered their discomfort. Wearing kimonos without underwear proved more embarrassing than expected. Ceres, barely able to contain himself, gave an enthusiastic thumbs up. His nosebleed betrayed his thoughts, despite his compliment. While still blushing, the women gave in to the mood. Ceres casually suggested honeymoon plans, surprising them with his boldness. Each woman shared her own idea for the outing. From food to handcrafted souvenirs, their interests diverged quickly. Left alone in the street, Ceres sighed. Despite the romantic setting, he couldn't help but feel slightly abandoned. Wandering the streets, Ceres noticed one of the women admiring a small, ornate box. Drawn by its patterns, she became momentarily captivated. Seeing her fascination, Ceres offered the box to her without hesitation. She asked if he was certain, and his simple nod confirmed it. They later sat together in a quiet spot overlooking the rooftops. A bit of silence lingered before she began speaking again. With a hesitant voice, she asked if he had ever given Mel a present. Ceres responded with a soft smile, recalling a necklace. He explained it had been a gesture to comfort Mel, who once cried after being rejected by Zect. Curious, she pressed Ceres for more details about the gift. Her tone suggested she already suspected the truth. Eventually, Ceres admitted the words he said while giving it. She smiled, knowingly, amused by his honesty. With a teasing look, she leaned closer and questioned whether he had crossed any lines. Her tone grew playful, her meaning clear. Startled, Ceres quickly denied everything. Despite her insinuations, he insisted nothing inappropriate had happened. Though flustered, he tried to reassure her that he'd never act improperly toward her daughter. With a warm smile, she asked if Ceres truly felt comfortable being with her, his former companion's mother. Without hesitation, he responded sincerely, calling her the best. The words brought a soft touch to her face. Moved by his honesty, she leaned in and kissed him gently. In the quiet corner of the town, the moment passed without interruption. Afterward, they shared a calm walk together. Before parting ways, he assured her they'd meet again at the inn. Continuing his walk, Ceres found himself near the lake. There, another familiar face greeted him, someone who had been waiting. Surrounded by serene nature and a distant torii gate, she stood peacefully, lost in quiet thought. Ceres approached and asked what was on her mind. She smiled, saying the scenery seemed to suit her. Looking over the lake, she admitted she felt calm here as well. His words brought a soft laugh and appreciation. A small object on the ground caught her attention. Ceres wondered aloud if perhaps his ancestors once visited this place too. She picked up an acorn and recalled a fond memory. Holding it close, she smiled and reminded him of the acorn necklace he had given her long ago. Shizuko smiled fondly, admitting she still treasured the old gift Ceres once gave her. Suddenly her mood shifted. As dark thoughts swirled, she confessed growing resentment toward Sector, maybe even murderous intent. Meanwhile, Ceres was startled by her intensity. She calmly explained that during her time as a slave, everything from her home had been discarded. That included every gift from Ceres. Despite the sadness behind her words, her expression remained oddly serene. Sensing the tension, Ceres quickly offered to give her another present. Just then, another voice called out, breaking the mood and redirecting their attention elsewhere. Out on the water, the swan boat glided gently across the lake. Shizuko sat calmly, enjoying the peaceful ride. Ceres pedaled with a smile, relieved to see her in better spirits. She quietly commented on the breeze, her mood finally light again. A sudden splash broke the silence. She leaned forward excitedly, calling out to him after spotting a fish jump. He stammered while watching her lean further ahead. In that moment, the outing truly felt like a youthful date, carefree and light-hearted, seated side by side. Shizuko blushed. Admitting her excitement was a bit embarrassing. Ceres reassured her, calling her beautiful and just as youthful. Shizuko reflected on her past, expressing how fulfilled she felt now. Because Ceres had found her, she could live each day with joy. Hearing her words stirred something in him. The boat rocked gently, and he reached out, his eyes serious. They locked eyes as her name left his lips. For a moment, silence stretched between them, only their heartbeats filling the air. Without hesitation, Ceres leaned forward. Their lips met, softly, but with conviction, a quiet answer to everything left unsaid. Later, as dusk settled over the inn, a voice lingered. Though they had once planned to part ways, something had clearly changed between them. Ceres found himself approached by two women who teasingly commented on his time spent with Shizuko and Seo. Faced with their teasing, Ceres quickly dropped to his knees in apology. One of them sighed, saying she would wait, though her tone remained uncertain. Later that day, the group casually parted ways inside the inn, at the open-air bath. One girl had already settled in. She sighed, enjoying the peaceful warmth until the sound of approaching footsteps caught her attention. Turning toward the sound, she spotted not one but all the other women entering. Ceres's name slipped from her lips as a mix of surprise and tension hung in the air. Ceres froze in disbelief as realization dawned. He had entered the wrong section. This was clearly the men's side, not a mixed bath. One of the girls stepped forward hesitantly, admitting she had been confused by a bathrobe left near the entrance. Others joined in, noting that the passageway seemed connected. Slowly, they pieced together that it was a shared hot spring, though none had expected it. Their casual remarks masked the awkwardness as they tried to act composed. Meanwhile, Ceres felt increasingly cornered, unsure where to look or stand. Despite the tension, no one chose to retreat. Remarks about past customs being bold echoed humorously. Ceres found himself unprepared for the private baths arrangement, alone with two women. He tried to keep his gaze steady. Three more joined, smiling warmly as they stepped closer to the edge. The atmosphere became heavier with unspoken expectations, and though no one voiced it, the invitation to share space was unmistakable. A short exchange followed, and one woman noticed Ceres's flushed expression. Steam rose between them as they settled in. Each glance, each shift of cloth pressed on Ceres's nerves. Two of them chuckled softly, teasing with restrained words. Their confidence overwhelmed him, and though they said little, the message lingered. He wouldn't forget this moment. Heat and proximity tested Ceres's composure. Repeated exposure dulled surprise, but sharpened awareness. Surrounded by calm smiles, his reactions stood out. Their ease contrasted his struggle, revealing how deeply the situation affected him compared to everyone else present. Sitting closer, two women observed him carefully. Their satisfaction came not from provocation, but from seeing honesty reflected in his unguarded responses. A sudden inner disturbance surfaced. Something restrained deep within reacted to the tension, forcing Ceres to focus inward and suppress an unfamiliar, dangerous impulse. Balance finally broke as closeness intensified. The group shifted instinctively, sensing the change, while Ceres stood at the edge between control and overwhelming desire. Calm returned briefly as they soaked in the hot spring, each settling into quiet comfort. Without warning, two women leaned in again, their words light but layered with intent. Ceres froze, caught between pleasure and panic as his boundaries thinned. Moments later, tension overwhelmed reason. He collapsed backward with dramatic flair, shocking everyone present. Their amused expressions turned to concern. One woman's eye narrowed, watching his condition shift. Doubt and familiarity crossed her gaze as she assessed his state. Ceres awoke to their voices and gentle smiles. Though scolded lightly, he felt oddly at peace, surrounded by warmth that blurred the line between teasing and affection. After collapsing in the spring, Ceres was gently carried indoors. When he awoke, the women remained close, watching over him as concern faded into quiet relief. Light teasing filled the air as they commented on earlier events. Moments later, warm meals arrived. Seated together, the group shifted focus to recovery and comfort. Smiles returned as appetite took over. Ceres sipped from the broth with genuine admiration. Everything served carried a taste of home, and he appreciated the detail in every dish. Joy spread across the table. Laughter came easily as they shared a simple meal, and Ceres silently acknowledged how strange yet welcome this world had become. Laughter bubbled up as the sake began to flow. One woman's face flushed, and her carefree posture hinted at the drink's effect taking hold. Ceres, observing quietly, grew more concerned than amused. Her robe, loosened without notice, revealed more than intended, further complicating the atmosphere. Soon, the others joined in, adding to the unease. Their playful expressions masked a growing boldness that left little room for retreat. One of them leaned closer, teasing without hesitation. Her words, casual on the surface, carried weight that pushed Ceres further off balance. Another chimed in without hesitation, her statement blurring the lines between jest and truth. While others remained bold, two women spoke more hesitantly. Doubt lingered behind their smiles, quietly revealing insecurities beneath their graceful appearances. Ceres listened calmly, choosing not to escalate the mood, rather than respond directly. Nearby, a newcomer observed the group's closeness. Her cheerful jealousy added a new layer to the already complex dynamic forming around him. They all gathered once more around the table. Light chatter, shared food, and unspoken emotions filled the air, balancing intimacy with familiarity. Later that night, the mood shifted again. The women offered their attention openly, urging Ceres to relax and let them take the lead if only for tonight. Restrained and confused, the young man finds himself surrounded, control taken from him as unfamiliar tension fills the room. One woman moves closer, her calm confidence shifting the balance. Instead of force, deliberate proximity and steady intent increase pressure, leaving him uncertain how events will unfold. Gradually, guidance replaces restraint as emotions surface. Encouragement pushes him toward action, while embarrassment and resolve mix, creating a fragile moment where resistance weakens. Momentum changes as bodies draw nearer, heat and urgency rising. By the end, resolve replaces confusion. Determination settles in his expression, signaling acceptance of the moment's direction, with tension lingering as roles fully reverse. Control slips further from his grasp as her determination builds. Despite the pace, she stays focused, ensuring every movement overwhelms his ability to resist. Another joins in with a confident tone and strategic approach. Satisfaction becomes a goal beyond comfort, leaving him caught in a cycle that denies reprieve. No space remains for hesitation. With firm gestures, she draws out everything he has kept guarded, leaving no part of him unexposed. A third figure leans in, calm yet assertive. Curiosity mixes with intensity as she ensures nothing escapes his attention, challenging him with her steady gaze. There's no pause between waves of pressure. Her words mark the promise of complete exhaustion. Exhaustion settles in as the girl collapses back, breath uneven and expression dazed from the intensity. Two others observe her state with satisfaction. Their confident smiles hint that their plan unfolded exactly as intended, leaving no doubt about who held control throughout. Celebration follows the ordeal. Glasses are raised in quiet triumph, the room filled with a sense of shared accomplishment. No, while he rests alone indoors, the group enjoys the peaceful night air. Their relaxed demeanor contrasts sharply with the earlier tension, suggesting closure has been reached. Reflections begin as they discuss the outcome. One claims to have discovered an effective technique, while another affirms their success. Under the quiet night sky, two women stand side by side, holding drinks as they reflect on the evening. Thoughts turn more serious as one considers the future. Concern mixes with resolve, recognizing that continued desire may demand more effort and cooperation than before. Another steps forward with gentle confidence. Her expression reveals genuine intent, driven by a wish to give comfort and fulfillment without hesitation or restraint. Gathered together on the balcony, all four women share the calm aftermath. Leaning on the railing, one smiles softly. Warm memories surface, making her feel renewed, as if affection has carried her back to a brighter, more youthful time. While gazing at the night sky, she reflects on the past. Though once seen as an older sister figure, her view of him shifted with time. Another woman smiles with quiet satisfaction. Together, they've reached a point where shared happiness no longer needs explanation, it simply exists between them. Lined up under the moonlight, they raise their glasses. The mood lightens as one prepares to speak again. A playful shift in energy hints at teasing among the group, softening the seriousness of the moment. The younger one offers a casual remark. Clearly at ease, modesty fades among close bonds, and the others react with amusement, letting the peaceful night wrap around them. A quiet reminder is shared under the moonlight, noting that even small carelessness could matter to someone important to them. Inside, one observes the sleeping figure with a soft voice. She notes his calm expression, quietly pleased that the day ended on a positive note. The group gathers one final time before rest. Sitting together, they offer gentle farewells for the night, united by shared care and silent gratitude. Morning arrives with a shift in setting. Far from the previous evening's warmth, discussion turns to surprise over his personal life. Those speaking find it unexpected that all his companions are older, each more mature than even themselves. Uncertainty clouds her thoughts. Doubts linger behind her eyes, questioning whether someone with her past could still be accepted. She expresses her hesitation openly. Despite outward composure, a quiet vulnerability surfaces as she wonders if her history would create distance. Elsewhere, a small group notices something unusual approaching. Confusion spreads among them as the street begins to stir with unexpected attention. The sound of hooves grows louder. A majestic carriage drawn by unicorns halts nearby, bearing the royal crest of Zamarl, sparking recognition and surprise. Speculation quickly follows. The idea of a royal visit seems implausible, but the possibility unsettles them. A sense of unease begins to settle in. Though calm on the surface, both Ceres and his companions suspect the arrival isn't by chance. The group confronts the new arrivals. As tension builds, a direct question confirms what many suspected: the visitors came, specifically for him. Standing tall before the group, the man introduces himself as Zan Markthorth, king of the Zamarl kingdom. Without delay, the king states his purpose. He wishes to bestow the title of hero upon Ceres, but his request carries an unspoken weight. In a sudden tonal shift, a different scene interrupts the narrative. A modern student stands atop a railing, delivering a strange and enthusiastic call to action. Ceres stood frozen as two figures entered the room, one of them radiating presence. A noblewoman stepped forward, her elegance unmistakable. The woman, with a composed smile, greeted everyone warmly. Her calm demeanor held authority, drawing attention from all present. Clearly, she hadn't appeared without reason. Several women approached from the street, responding with friendly faces. Familiarity laced their expressions as they acknowledged her. A man introduced himself as Prime Minister Dobel. His sudden appearance raised questions in Ceres's mind. Ceres hesitated but found himself surrounded by expectations. With little choice, he agreed to follow them to a villa in Kohain. He knelt before the king, unsure of the true intent behind the sudden praise. The royal's words, however, carried weight. Although they had barely spoken before, Ceres had once sent proposals during his time with the heroes' party. Their relationship never developed beyond that. The king, recalling those written plans, commended their brilliance. In his eyes, they had been the work of a refined strategist, far beyond ordinary expectations. Achievement spoke louder than titles. Ceres had slain countless dragons, including high-ranking ones, earning recognition as a national protector. Regret filled the king's tone. Talent like Ceres's being discarded by the heroes' party baffled him. Ceres stood before the king as the suggestion to bestow a title echoed through the hall. The old system of braves was no longer needed. From the castle walls, crowds watched as the king declared him a hero. Unlike before, the title now honored contributions. Not just power, privileges came with it. In times of crisis, Ceres would be permitted to seek aid directly from nobility and the king himself. Silence followed his hesitation. Denying the title might jeopardize his stay in the country. Accepting the honor, Ceres bowed his head. Recognition, once stolen, had returned, this time not through force but respect. In a formal setting, the king extended his hand and granted Ceres the long-awaited title of hero. With the ceremony still underway, the king hinted at greater rewards, nobility, and even a royal marriage, dependent on future merit. The announcement startled Ceres. His reaction betrayed disbelief, confirming he hadn't misheard the mention of the princess's hand. King Zamar had two daughters. One, Princess Marianne, was already married into the kingdom of Balta. News followed quickly. Balta had fallen. Marianne, once destined to marry the hero Zect, was now the king's choice for Ceres should he prove worthy. The presence of Princess Marianne alongside the king confirmed his intentions. Ceres realized the situation was more complex than expected. A request followed swiftly. The king mentioned a personal favor and urged Ceres to prepare for future exploits. Any hope for a peaceful life faded. Ceres listened intently. A dragon-like creature had taken residence near Kohain, a resort town. The situation required discretion. Orders were clear. He was to deal with the creature, preferably by slaying it. Though negotiation was an option, Ceres accepted without hesitation. Before the cave's shadowy entrance, frustration brewed. What should have been a moment of rest now turned into yet another dangerous mission. Ceres considered going alone, but his companions insisted on joining. The cave might hold more threats than just the dragon. Before discussions could begin, a group of monsters ambushed them. The party reacted instantly, cutting them down with practiced precision. Aya's silence returned. One of the women reflected on the significance of being called a hero. Behind the praise was political motive. The king's decision to honor Ceres was also a move to secure a new elite force. Other nations were surely watching. With Ceres no longer tied to the Braves' party, powers like Gandalf or Galban might try to win him over for themselves. Ceres walked with his party, noting how well informed they were. His reputation as a hero and dragon slayer, combined with S-rank status, drew attention naturally. His companions agreed, sharing that S-rank adventurers often received offers filled with wealth and temptation. He reflected silently. Without accomplishments, no title or princess would have been offered. Meanwhile, The others fondly recalled their younger days as carefree C-rank adventurers. A change in topic brought up Princess Marianne. Ceres sensed the mission was becoming more personal than expected. He learned their connection dated back a decade. The woman admitted they once had a client relationship, one that hinted at something deeper left unsaid. The kingdom of Barda, where Princess Marianne had once married into, fell under siege by the demon army. Smoke and chaos filled the air. To their families, the women claimed it was just a casual trip. In truth, they had already retired from adventuring. Behind the scenes, a secret mission had been issued by King Zamar to rescue Princess Marianne from the ruins of Barda. The group observed the stronghold. Charging directly was too risky. Enemy forces outnumbered them by far, prompting a more cautious approach. As they prepared, one member identified the enemy commander, an imposing demon woman. A protective spell was cast while the group prepared to engage. The group launched a full assault. Blades clashed and cloaks flew as they cut through the front line of demons. One of the warriors unleashed a devastating ice spell, freezing several enemies in place instantly. The tide began to shift. As the demon commander turned in confusion, a sudden ambush from behind caught her off guard. The attackers moved with precision. A magical barrier shielded the team. Calmly stepping forward, their leader ordered the path cleared toward the mansion, leaving no room for negotiation. Before the demon commander could react further, a blade pressed against her throat. With a whisper, her fate was sealed. The group advanced past fallen enemies. With the demon commander defeated, the way to the mansion was finally open. Inside the grand, ruined chamber, Haruka called out to Princess Marianne. The silence weighed heavily, broken only by her hopeful voice. A soft creak followed. From a hidden wardrobe, Marianne emerged, shaken but alive. Her eyes widened in recognition. After escaping the wreckage, Marianne listened to her rescuers recount the attack. The streets of Barda had fallen into chaos without warning. As the carriage carried them away, Marianne revealed how her maid had hidden her. Sadly, she had no knowledge of any other survivors left behind. Princess Marianne asked the question she feared most. The expression on her rescuer's face gave her the answer. Tears welled up as the realization hit her. Her husband and son hadn't survived the attack. Unable to hold back the grief, Marianne broke down. Her companion embraced her gently, offering silent comfort through the sorrow. Later the party stood together again. The story of the rescue and the kingdom's fall was shared with the others. Ceres listened in silence. The conversation ended with a quiet note. Their connection with the princess, though born of duty, had left a lasting impression. One meeting, one cup of tea, that was the extent of it. Marianne's friend smiled awkwardly, hinting that the option of marriage wasn't off the table. Ceres remained silent, unsure how to respond. Before anything could develop, a strange presence was detected. Something powerful waited ahead in the cave. Ceres offered to negotiate. Curiosity rose. With power great enough to tame dragons, even his allies wondered what he was truly capable of. Ceres admitted he didn't fully understand it yet. The answer appeared before them. A massive, terrifying beast stood at the cavern's center, more monstrous than expected. The party stood still. Confusion set in. Was this really the dragon they had been told about? It looked nothing like one. Ceres stepped forward and attempted to speak with the beast, hoping to avoid conflict. The creature didn't respond. Its roar confirmed it couldn't understand his words. Negotiation had failed. Weapons were drawn. With no other option left, the group prepared for battle against the rampaging threat ahead. Ceres and his party confronted a monstrous beast lurking deep within the cavern. Weapons drawn, they prepared for a final strike, ready to end the threat together. Just as the finishing blow was about to be dealt, Ceres froze. A strained voice echoed from the creature, catching him completely off guard. The beast let out a guttural cry, but within it faint words emerged. Unmoved by the hesitation, the woman beside him tightened her grip on her staff. Before the monster could act again, she summoned a radiant barrier. The holy wall burst forth, crashing into the beast's gaping maw, halting its advance in an explosion of sacred force. An urgent warning rang out as the beast retaliated. She shouted for everyone to dodge immediately. The creature's sudden burst of strength shattered part of the barrier. Dust scattered as the party regrouped. While crouched behind cover, one fighter devised a new plan. She and Misaki prepared for a counterattack. Charging toward the monster's leg, Misaki struck with precision. Her blade, however, failed to pierce its thick hide. Without hesitation, her ally surged forward, delivering a powerful blow from a massive weapon, aiming to break the stalemate. Magic was summoned as the party changed tactics. A powerful ice spear launched straight toward the enemy. The spell struck its target, but the beast withstood the attack. Size and resilience made it nearly untouchable. Ceres recalled the creature's earlier words. he began to understand it wasn't fighting to live, but begging for death. Standing beside the fallen creature, he realized the truth. It had once been a dragon, now reduced to a broken form. With his voice firm, Ceres gave instructions. Misaki was to aim for its heart and end its suffering swiftly. Ceres issued commands to prepare for the final assault. Shizuko was asked to protect the vanguard. With precision, he instructed Seiyo to cast a freezing spell. Even a few seconds would be enough. Flames wrapped around his blade as Ceres activated an enhancement spell, fueling it with elemental magic. He declared their plan to drive the spell directly into the beast's body with full force. With all preparations complete, the team charged forward. Blades, spells, and resolve aimed at one goal. Ending the battle, Misaki unleashed a powerful slash. Her blade spinning with fierce momentum aimed straight at the beast's back. Following her lead, her comrade struck the ground with immense force, tearing open the monster's hide with raw power. A gaping wound remained, but the creature retaliated with a swift claw swipe. Misaki narrowly avoided the strike. Before the attack could land, a barrier shimmered into place. Shizuko's timely magic saved Misaki from a fatal blow. As the creature recoiled, Seiyo activated the freezing spell. Absolute Zero surged forth, encasing the monster in ice. Ceres drew strength from within, unleashing the dragon's power coursing through his body into his weapon. Magic flared violently as he drove his attack deep into the creature. Flames erupted on impact. Smoke poured from the wound as the beast let out a final groan. A faint voice echoed its gratitude. Observing the aftermath, Ceres sensed something unnatural. The creature's behavior felt forced, as though driven by an outside force. He remembered a past warning. The truth became clear: it wasn't mere corruption but a curse from the Black Dragon. Ceres stared at the fallen dragon's body, uncertain if he would one day share its fate. The others rushed to his side in concern. Reassurance came through their presence. No one was harmed, and the tension slowly gave way to relief. With the danger behind them, cheerful banter resumed. Jokes and teasing lightened the air between the battle-worn group. He decided not to share his worries. For now, he would simply stay by their side and not burden them. At the royal estate, Ceres delivered news of the mission's success. The king, impressed, offered recognition and reward. Before receiving his reward, Ceres was asked to meet someone privately. The name Marianne was mentioned. He entered a lavish room where the princess awaited, her presence immediately commanding attention. Marianne turned to him with a gentle expression. Her voice was soft as she addressed him. Up close, she was surprised by his youth, yet something about his presence gave off quiet strength. She acknowledged his deeds and the rumors surrounding him. His courage and his growing reputation had clearly reached the palace. Ceres stood before Princess Marianne, offering polite praise. Her beauty and noble presence impressed him, but she smiled gently, brushing off the compliments. Without hesitation, Marianne began explaining the harsh reality of her position. Society, she noted, viewed women as disposable once their youth faded. Revealing her past, she admitted to having children. The confession came with no trace of shame, only clarity. She turned away, speaking of the absurdity of becoming someone's wife again. Though her father had spoken of the possibility, she clearly saw it as unrealistic. The conversation ended with a question that hung in the air. Both stood silently, separated by expectation and reality. Ceres's unexpected reply left Marianne startled. Despite her doubts, he spoke with honesty, saying he wouldn't mind. His calm response contrasted her growing embarrassment. He elaborated without hesitation, stating that beauty wasn't limited by age. Marianne stood frozen, surprised by his blunt confidence. Ceres mentioned his 4 wives, placing her on equal ground. Shifting nervously, Marianne admitted her weaknesses. Housework wasn't her strength, but she offered something else. Lowering her gaze, she continued with a flushed face. During the nights, she promised unwavering devotion. Blushing deeply, he glanced away before smiling awkwardly. Trying to stay composed, he acknowledged her offer. Marianne stood close, gently gripping Ceres's cloak. She admitted her inability to fight alongside the others. Though lacking combat skills, she promised to wait and pray for his safe return. Lowering her gaze, she questioned whether someone like her was appealing. Insecure but hopeful, she revealed a rare vulnerability. Ceres responded with honesty. While the royal status brought complications, he held no complaint toward her. His words, though cautious, carried sincerity and respect. As the mood shifted, a sudden sound broke the silence. A series of beeps came from Ceres's side pouch. Ceres activated the communication orb, surprised by the unexpected message. A familiar voice greeted him warmly. Through the crystal, a familiar voice greeted Ceres. Sally from the Adventurers Guild appeared with urgency in her tone. Her expression turned serious. Due to the nature of the situation, A gag order had been issued. The orb displayed an image 4 adventurers chained and battered. These were the members of the hero's party. Ceres immediately recognized their faces. They had fallen to one of the Demon King's elite generals, strong-arm Maimon. Their defeat had been total, their capture absolute, despite their condition. They were still alive. Ceres learned their execution had been scheduled in 7 days. So far, the enemy had not taken their lives. The demon warrior stood tall, his back turned, radiating pressure. Muscles tensed as a deadly challenge was issued. Zek sat in silence, reflecting on the conversation from earlier. The decision to quit weighed heavily, yet it had already been voiced by the others. Memories of the disastrous battle returned. The party, unprepared and overwhelmed, charged the dragons without any plan. Alone in his room, Zek considered their future. Continuing the fight against the Demon King now seemed impossible, though regret lingered in his voice. Zek chose acceptance. He held back further words, acknowledging the finality of their decision with a quiet resolve. The girls sat nearby, still shaken. Across from them, the elder confirmed Zek's path. Zek received harsh criticism from the elder, who called out his weakness, and accused him of dumping responsibility onto Ceres. Trying to defend himself, Zek claimed he had spoken with Ceres before. He argued that, had he truly been irresponsible. He recalled a conversation with Ceres after the decision. Ceres had pointed out that other powers existed, ones capable of commanding humanity without needing the Pope's approval. The elder mentioned the Brave Protection Law, which grants brave warriors the right to assemble forces to battle demons. Zek remembered Ceres's chilling words: if quitting wasn't allowed, he'd invoke that law and go to war no matter the cost. Ceres was officially recognized as a hero. Meanwhile, Zek's former teammates reflected on responsibility. If one person abandoned it, someone else had to carry the burden. The elder ordered Zek to return all his holy gear. His role as a brave had ended, and his comrades were dismissed as well. Zek, stunned, questioned Ceres's true nature. Privately, Ceres admitted that becoming a hero alone was overwhelming. Curious about their plans, Ceres asked the others what they intended to do next. With smiles and relief, the group agreed to retreat to the village. Ceres acknowledged his lost privileges, including polygamy. The group discussed who Ceres might choose, but ultimately agreed the decision wasn't theirs to make. Maria, once close to him, gently declined a romantic future, and asked to remain only friends. Zek smiled in understanding and accepted her choice. They all looked forward to a quieter life in Gymluna. Before they could depart, a guard informed them of an urgent mission: demons were attacking the town. Despite the surprise, they quickly shifted into action, with only one enemy. It felt like a good start to their new chapter together. They ran toward the threat, ready for battle. A lone humanoid demon stood amidst the destruction. Smoke curled through the ruined town as civilians lay unconscious. Lyda readied her spell while the others stood prepared. Zek called for the first strike. Rallying the group into coordinated action, magic surged forward in a powerful blast. Flames erupted on impact, signaling the battle had officially begun. Zek and his ally launched into close combat. With synchronized movements, they unleashed their strongest techniques, Iron Cutter and Wings of Light, against the enemy. Despite their efforts, the demon proved formidable. Zek was caught in its grasp, lifted helplessly as his companions looked on in shock. The horned demon introduced himself as Maimon, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Zek stood frozen, overwhelmed by his presence. In an instant, Maimon struck. Despite the team's effort, he mocked their identity as the hero's party. Without mercy, he grabbed one of the women and effortlessly restrained her. Their strength, he declared, was far too insufficient. Zek charged with determination, striking repeatedly. His attacks, however, failed to land any real damage against the powerful enemy. Collapsed and breathless, Zek claimed his title as humanity's strongest, yet Maimon remained unimpressed, demanding a more worthy opponent. Zek, bruised and exhausted, admitted that the title of humanity's strongest might now belong to Ceres. He could no longer rely on him. A boy stepped forward in defiance, confronting the demon. With trembling hands, he swore vengeance in Ceres's name. Maimon paused, surprised by the child's resolve. Zek shouted in warning, but the boy held firm, invoking the hero's name again. Amused by the defiance, Maimon declared his intention. The remaining party would be captured, and their execution delayed by 7 days. Defeated and wounded, the team lay scattered. Zek, lying motionless, whispered a plea asking Ceres not to come. They had failed to stop Maimon. Ceres stood before Princess Marianne. She called to him with concern. Sensing the decision he'd already made, he apologized, placing their personal matters aside. Without hesitation, he prepared to teleport, determined to face the situation first. Reports confirmed the enemy, strong-arm Maimon, one of the 4 heavenly kings. His might rivaled even the demon kings, though Ceres assessed Maimon as weaker than the Black Dragon. Doubts clouded his mind. His current strength might not be enough. Despite the risk, Ceres resolved to go. He feared what his dragon-infused body might become, but chose to fight for the sake of his childhood friends. Before leaving, Ceres made a heartfelt promise to Marianne. She asked only one thing: to return alive. With quiet resolve, he assured her, once safely back, they would continue their future together. Thanks to his title as a hero, Ceres coordinated with multiple nations. Orders were sent to mobilize support forces and protect civilians. Understanding Maimon's threat, Ceres made arrangements. He requested the kingdom of Zamar to delay his companions, knowing their loyalty could place them in danger. Meanwhile, Shizuko and the others received a separate mission. Due to special conditions, they would be apart for a while, kept away from the coming battle. With a gentle smile, Ceres wished them well. His farewell was calm, though resolve burned quietly beneath. Ahead lay the wastelands and his next trial. Facing the unknown, he braced himself, and offered a silent apology to those he might leave behind. Before departing, he turned to Gianta, the dragon. A single request was made: reach the fortress city and prepare for what's to come. As they flew, memories returned. Ceres reflected on the strange path that led him here, marrying Shizuko, and becoming stepfather to Zect and the others. Though reckless, they were still young. As a former father, he watched over them not as allies, but as if they were his own children. While Ceres pushed forward, the girls speculated about their mysterious quest. Tea and laughter masked their curiosity. Suspicion rose. One of them asked Marianne if she knew more than she let on. Her reaction gave it away. She struggled to admit it, confessing her helplessness. Despite her father's orders, she feared failing to protect the person she loved most. Determined not to let Ceres face everything alone, Marianne cried out. She refused to live with the regret of doing nothing. Reality struck hard. The brave party had been captured and imprisoned. In another place, their allies watched the grim scene unfold through a magical orb. The mothers learned the captured party would be executed in 7 days. Though expected, the news hit hard. Marianne cried out in shock, but the others stood resolute. Abandoning their children was never an option. Together, they marched forward. No one would let Ceres face death alone, not while they still had strength. With a calm, determined smile, one of them reassured Marianne they would save everyone, no matter the risk. A report mentioned a dragon flying toward Dominique. Recognizing it as Ceres, the women began planning their fastest route to reunite with him. The group discussed their next move. Without a flying dragon, reaching Dominique in time seemed impossible. Marianne made a bold offer. She promised to handle everything secretly, and suggested they use the royal griffin. The powerful beasts were prepared swiftly. Clad in armor, the griffins stood ready for high-speed flight across vast distances. Before departure, Marianne silently prayed. Her hopes rested on their safe return and the success of their mission. Without delay, the women took to the skies. Mounted on royal griffins, they soared toward danger, determined to reach Ceres and save their children. As the others flew ahead, Marianne stood silently, her eyes filled with quiet resolve for what's coming next. As the sun dipped below the horizon, a dragon sliced through the sky with a rider aboard. Below, a demon lord stood in silence, watching the creatures approach. Ceres landed beside the dragon, his calm presence contrasting the destruction left in his wake. The creature exhaled smoke, its eyes fixed ahead. Zect trembled, stunned that Ceres had returned, despite everything. Regret mixed with shame as Ceres spoke, refusing to let anger guide him. Without hesitation, Ceres revealed his new life. He had married Shizuko and Haruka, Sayo, and Misaki too. Shock rippled through the group, faces contorted in disbelief, their minds struggling to reconcile past actions with present consequences. Silence followed. Confusion erupted among the prisoners. Each struggled to understand how Ceres had ended up marrying their mothers. Ceres calmly explained everything. He rescued Shizuko from slavery. As for the others, their bonds formed through conversation and choice. Zect and his companions recoiled at the truth. Age gaps, shock, and disgust churned within them. Their reaction, however, didn't faze Ceres, who remained resolute, declaring himself their new dad. Ceres made his position clear. Children deserved a present guardian. The demon watched, amused. Ceres turned to face him, determination unwavering. With goodbyes said, he marched toward battle. The clash was inevitable. Ceres lunged forward with speed, slashing through the air as flames trailed behind his blade. His sword connected, igniting a burst of fire across the demon's chest. Without pause, he followed up with a secondary attack, pressing closer with focused precision. Recognizing the futility of direct combat, Ceres shifted tactics. The attacks were a distraction. His true plan required something else entirely. From his pouch, he drew a special hammer. Not just any weapon, this one could destroy the source of the demon's power. A final leap brought him overhead. He swung with full force. The hammer crashing into the demon's horn, the impact left the demon stunned. Ceres launched his attack, but the demon swiftly closed the distance and caught him mid-strike. Surprise filled his eyes. Despite taking visible damage, the demon grinned. The holy weapon meant nothing to him. Ceres' efforts had failed to break through. Forced to his knees, Ceres clutched his arm in pain. From the side, his allies screamed, their voices echoing in desperation. Behind the prison bars, his former comrades pleaded for him to escape. None of them wanted to see him fall here. Smoke filled the battlefield. The demon towered over Ceres, his voice calm and mocking. He dismissed the effort as dull. Ceres froze as the demon mocked his weakness. Overhead, two winged beasts soared through the sky, signaling something had changed. Descending with precision, 4 powerful women arrived. They were no ordinary allies, each held strength, experience, and intent. The battlefield had shifted. Without hesitation, they coordinated. Haruka moved to secure the captives. Meanwhile, Sayo and Misaki prepared to confront the threat head on. A devastating sword strike shattered the ground as one unleashed a powerful slash. Her technique forced the demon to guard. Before he could recover, another attack followed. Ice burst outward from the mage's spell, halting the enemy's advance and covering Ceres. Freed from their restraints, the prisoners smiled with relief. Ceres stood tall, supporting one of his wives as they regrouped. Chains clattered to the ground as another ally approached with the keys. The group began to free each other quickly. Ceres, focused and firm, signaled. There was no time to rest. The battle wasn't over yet. Regret weighed on the former party members. Realizing the consequences of their actions, they stood quietly, acknowledging their past mistake. A soft moment followed. One of Ceres' wives gently reached out, adjusting his collar with care. Magic shimmered faintly between them. As she began healing him, Shizuko knelt beside Ceres, her voice calm. She reassured him that no one blamed him, though hurt. He tried to explain his decision. A soft smile formed as she leaned closer. Emotions stirred as tears welled in both their eyes. Forgiveness needed no further words. Meanwhile, the demon continued to stand his ground. Surrounded, he remained unfazed by the women's attacks, dismissing them as weak. Each blow bounced off his hardened body. Confidence radiated from him as he repeated the same phrase, shrugging off their strikes. The battlefield shook with force. Stones rose around him as he declared his strength. Their efforts seemed futile. A violent shockwave blasted everyone backward. Allies and enemies alike were thrown through the air and hit the ground hard. Pain settled into their limbs. The women gritted their teeth, realizing just how strong their opponent truly was. None of them had faced force like this before. Despite injuries, Ceres stood again. Energy gathered in his hand, his will refusing to break. Nearby, the shattered staff and orb lay forgotten. Far away, in the kingdom of Zamar, nobles and citizens gathered. A projection displayed the battlefield, showing Ceres at the heart of the chaos. Among the crowd, one woman trembled. Memories of past devastation returned as she watched her loved ones face danger. The demon acknowledged Ceres' persistence with a rare smirk. Seeing him still standing, he decided to take him more seriously. The women regrouped, determined to support him. However, the demon declared he'd only accept a fair duel after eliminating what he called nuisances. Ceres saw Shizuko moving forward. Panic flared as he shouted, trying to stop her before it was too late. Flashes of memories surged. Faces of those he loved filled his mind, wives who brought him peace, warmth, and purpose. That happiness was everything. He couldn't bear to lose it now. Without hesitation, Ceres lunged. Power radiated from him as he confronted the demon directly, emotion pushing past pain. Ceres approached the demon without hesitation. Confusion spread across everyone's faces. Even the demon paused, unsure of his intent. With sudden force, Ceres clamped his jaw shut on the demon's body. His eyes burned, sharp teeth sinking in. Black blood sprayed from the wound. Ceres refused to let go, holding fast with a grip that defied reason or fear. The demon staggered backward, disbelief etched into his face. No one had ever dared such a reckless move. Shock rippled through the onlookers. The wives stood frozen, torn between alarm and awe. None had anticipated this kind of attack. Ceres' right arm twisted unnaturally. Scales crept up his skin, transforming it into something monstrous and powerful. His gaze locked forward. No fear remained in his eyes. Resolve burned, and something inside him had awakened. Energy surged through his limbs. The pain was gone. Instead, strength filled every muscle, overwhelming and unfamiliar. The demon lunged in rage, but Ceres countered with brutal precision. His scaled arm punched deep into the enemy's chest, halting the charge. Despite the blow, Ceres's voice remained steady. He called himself a regular human. Confused, the demon trembled, unable to understand how this was possible. Ceres launched into the air and unleashed a powerful kick. The blow landed cleanly, sending the demon staggering. Rage twisted the demon's face. From above, Ceres dropped with force, his hands clasped together. The impact smashed the demon into the stone floor, cracking it apart. Enraged but still defiant, the demon shouted. Ceres remained calm, warning him not to get arrogant just because of his strength. Dark energy burst from the demon's body in retaliation. He cloaked himself in flame and smoke, trying to blind and push Ceres back. As the dust settled, the demon began removing his cloak, muscles tensed. He admitted defeat no longer seemed likely. Now, he would fight seriously. The demon revealed his final technique, one he could only unleash once in decades. His confidence grew. Ceres responded calmly. Dark energy surged behind him as wings burst forth from his back. Both warriors faced off, the earth cracking beneath them. The wives observed silently, unsure what would happen next. Ceres launches into the air with force wings outstretched, aiming directly at the towering enemy. Across the field the demon stands grinning, his massive fists already in motion smashing the earth beneath. As the demon swings upward, Ceres rotates his body in midair. Closing the gap in an instant, he drives his foot forward with precision. The momentum of Ceres's attack sends the enemy stumbling back. A second strike lands, forcing a pained expression from the demon. From the castle walls, several women observe the fight. One notes Ceres's unexpected strength. High above the battlefield, Ceres descends once more, his wings slicing through the air. Ceres swoops in at blinding speed, fist extended toward his towering foe. The enemy braces, raising both arms in anticipation. His blows land fast and precise. The first impacts the demon's guard, but the force doesn't relent. Rather than falter, the demon lets out a shout of admiration. He welcomes the challenge and clenches his fists with renewed spirit. Ceres remains calm, noting the demon's resilience. Exhaustion creeping in, Ceres narrows his eyes and charges again. Each flap of his wings pushes him faster. The demon counters, catching Ceres mid-flight with sheer strength. A powerful slam drives them downward, crashing into the stone structure below. The demon roared with fury, caught off guard by the unexpected resistance. Ceres soared into the sky, leaving behind a powerful burst of wind. Observers stood frozen, eyes following the streak of wings disappearing across the battlefield. Among the onlookers, tension rose. They sensed the scale of power Ceres now wielded, inhuman and absolute. Doubt faded from their expressions. Confidence replaced hesitation. Though concerned, they trusted him. At last, Ceres reappeared. His figure calm, a faint smile formed as he approached. The war seemed momentarily distant. The group stood together, their expressions strained. Each had taken damage, and the toll was visible. On the ground, one of them clutched her side, unable to cast healing magic. Another knelt beside her, concern etched on her face, turning toward the woman before him. The young man hesitated only briefly. He extended his hand with hope, silently asking for help they could no longer provide themselves. Emotion surged within him as exhaustion and relief collided. Tears broke through as he covered his face, the weight of survival pressing hard on his chest. Without warning, he collapsed forward. His body tumbled across the ground, no longer able to support his effort. Maria received a small potion, her hands trembling as she stared at it. Her companion offered no comfort, only a cold remark. Despite the seriousness of the injury, the other girl insisted survival alone was sufficient, brushing aside Maria's concern. Nearby, the remaining members stood in silence. One of the women reassured them that healers would arrive later. Light-heartedly, two women smirked at the situation. With unsettling confidence, they stated that once Ceres returned, they'd hold a family meeting. The atmosphere shifted, confusing the others. Mel stood in shame. A harsh comment pierced the tension she had soiled herself. Disgusted expressions surrounded her. While Ceres rested unconscious nearby, two women discussed their next step. Far away in the holy kingdom of Gandal, a crowd buzzed with questions. Confusion spread quickly as they spoke about Ceres's sudden transformation and disappearance after grabbing Maimon. Inside, the royal chambers, nobles debated his identity. Some were shaken by his inhuman appearance. Others defended him without hesitation, hailing him as a true hero. A woman with flowing hair quietly confirmed the transformed being was indeed Lord Ceres. Her words seemed to carry both admiration and awe. Former Saint Cecilia stood enraptured. Blushing and smiling, she declared him worthy of her devotion. Cecilia, still flushed from earlier, assured everyone that Ceres would triumph using his divine powers. In the Galvan Empire, the topic of Ceres had reached the royal court. A noble raised the idea of him as a potential suitor, citing the strength he had displayed. Frey, once a famed sword saint, reacted with mixed feelings. Another noble commented on Ceres's growing list of wives. He casually noted that if Ceres could accept them, a 28-year-old like Frey should pose no issue. Among Ceres's wives were two infamous warriors, Misaki, the berserk Black Knight, and Haruka, the smiling Reaper demon. Frey stood stunned, questions swirling in her mind. Ceres's power, his teachers, and his origins now seemed beyond anything she had imagined. Elsewhere, a volcano erupted with explosive force. Ceres and his opponent relocated there, choosing isolation for their final clash. Floating above the volcanic rock, the enemy held Ceres in one hand. Annoyed, Ceres demanded to be released, clearly unimpressed by the display of dominance. Calmly, Ceres gripped his foe. He reminded the demon of the scorching environment, noting the magma's deadly temperature. Their battle turned into a trial of will. The demon welcomed it with a laugh, but questioned if a human could survive such a place. Ceres glanced at the ribbon tied to his waist. Shizuko's. His body had become that of a dragon, and with that transformation came resilience. Deciding to break away, Ceres took flight. His opponent tried to pursue, but the distance grew. Flames consumed the battlefield. Within the inferno, the demon sank slowly. Even in defeat, he smiled, acknowledging the thrill of the battle. Above the scorched terrain, Ceres hovered quietly. Smoke curled around him as he observed the scene below, staring at his clawed hand. Ceres understood the change. He had crossed the line. Ceres reflected on his state. His body had undergone dragonification, a transformation triggered by the Black Dragon's curse. A massive figure emerged through the mist, a dragon tall and imposing. Its wings stretched wide as raw energy pulsed through its scales. Examining his appearance, he noticed his unexpected color. Instead of black, his dragon form had taken on a yellow hue, surprising even himself. Looking down at the ground, Ceres acknowledged the truth. He had come to understand the full extent of his newfound power. Although unable to defeat the Black Dragon, he could crush Maimon instantly. If Maimon was truly stronger than the Demon King, two observers watched the swirling sky. One deduced that the true rulers of the world were the elusive Dragon King's beings powerful enough to control the balance behind the scenes. Hovering high, Ceres realized the truth. Only the Dragon Kings could match his power now. Descending, he reversed his transformation. With the process of humanification complete, his dragon form faded away, leaving behind his human appearance. Although he had returned to human shape, his essence hadn't changed. His arm had regenerated. Staring at his hand, Ceres questioned if he'd still be accepted. Despite his fears, someone called out to him. Someone who still saw him as Lord Ceres, not a monster. Ceres contacted her through the communication crystal, informing her that Maimon had been defeated. Relief washed over her face. Emotions, once restrained, broke through. Around her, others in the room relaxed, reassured by the news of his safety. Overwhelmed, her body responded instinctively. She stumbled slightly, unprepared for the emotional release. On his end, Ceres noticed her reaction and offered a light-hearted smile, trying to ease the moment. Still holding the crystal, Ceres hesitated. A thought crossed his mind. He was no longer fully human. Conflicted by his transformation, Ceres silently wondered if such a future could still be shared. Fears about connection and compatibility stirred beneath the surface. Ceres informed her of his departure, intending to return to the royal capital immediately. Flying alone, he soared across the sky. Despite his strength, uncertainty weighed heavily. Elsewhere, former Saint Cecilia reflected on the past. She recalled a time when she once stood against the Demon King only to be completely overwhelmed and defeated without mercy. That memory lingered. Frey and Cecilia were the only ones left, standing after the hero and sorcerer were killed instantly. Just before it was too late, Shizuko and Princess Seo had intervened. The two women did something unknown to the Demon King. From afar, a girl observed Ceres through the crystal communication device. She quietly acknowledged the truth. The boy now wielded the power of a dragon, alone in her chamber. Cecilia's heart stirred. Her admiration grew stronger, not only for his strength but for the way he reignited hope within her. Emotion overcame hesitation. She found herself drawn to thoughts she hadn't expected, ones filled with longing and devotion. The moment lingered in quiet tension. Her breath trembled as she remained seated, lost in her thoughts. With a soft gaze, she turned her eyes toward the screen. Beyond admiration, she expressed a sincere desire to stand beside Ceres, not just in feeling. Marianne flushed with anticipation, tension building inside her. A rival approached, Yet her thoughts remained firmly fixed on Ceres. Seated atop a shimmering platform, Lord Bauer stared into the void, overwhelmed by confusion. A younger man spoke calmly, analyzing the impossible. The chances of a new Dragon Lord arising were negligible. He reclined with ease, flipping through a book as if discussing the weather. Only one Dragon Lord still possessed a liver him. Without hesitation he answered. The liver had gone to Ceres, the man Lord Bauer had once ordered him to meet. Bauer listened in silence. The man explained further he'd accidentally killed Ceres in battle. Offering his liver was the only way to make amends. Unknowingly, he had created the sixth Dragon Lord. The revelation stunned him. Ceres, against all odds, had successfully become the newest Dragon Lord. Lord Bauer, calm and composed, issued a command. Someone needed to teach Ceres the laws. Once again, the burden fell to the reluctant warrior, who couldn't hide his irritation. Protests came swiftly. Teaching wasn't his strength, and his own flaws weren't a secret. A new voice entered. From the shadows emerged a composed woman, the Blue Dragon. Displeased by the turn of events, the warrior grumbled. Meanwhile, Lord Bauer reminded him of the chaos he'd caused. A vast domain stretched below one soon to be ruled. Inside the stone hall, a group of former allies sat in silence. Concern over Ceres stirred unease. No one understood what had become of him. Rumors ran wild. They recalled how their own mothers had gone to see Ceres. Stranger still, it felt like the women had chosen to follow him. Outside the stronghold, someone approached. The rescue team had returned, drawing attention. A familiar figure moved among them, sparking surprise and confusion. Cecilia, the former saint, stood before them. Her calm expression masked deep judgment. Kneeling beside the injured, Cecilia examined the girl's condition. Memories of betrayal surfaced. Cecilia inspected the wounded arm with practiced eyes. Despite the injury's severity, she calmly assured them it could be healed. Though she agreed to help, it came with strings attached. Her decision was influenced by debts to Shizuko and Seo. When asked about her conditions, Cecilia revealed the truth. Her feelings for Ceres had grown strong, no longer just gratitude, but genuine affection had taken root. A bold request followed. She wanted a mediator, someone who could help her win Ceres' heart. The boy rejected the plea instantly. He dismissed her as too old for Ceres and refused to play matchmaker. Cecilia responded swiftly, locking the boy in a tight hold. His careless remark about her age had clearly crossed a line. Pinned to the ground, he quickly surrendered. Cecilia, however, embraced the idea of becoming a stepmother, with a cheerful glow, undeterred by the implications. Negotiations ended in her favor. The girls, desperate for aid, agreed to support her romantic pursuit of Ceres if it meant saving their friend. Raising an elixir in hand, Cecilia invoked holy power, though she lacked the ability to heal perfectly alone. With determination blazing in her eyes, she cast her strongest spell. The sacred incantation Perfect Heal surged forth, ready to restore every wound with brilliance and grace. The group, now fully healed, smiled with relief. Cecilia's voice cut through their joy, reminding them to uphold the promise they made. Elsewhere, two women worked quietly amid ruins, casting healing magic on the wounded. Amid broken walls and scattered debris, rescuers searched tirelessly. One warrior called for help, confirming the survivors were still alive beneath the rubble. The healer squad arrived just in time. One of the women turned to her companion and assured her they could handle the rest from here. Tired but compliant, Shizuko nodded. Worn down by effort, she admitted defeat. Continuing further would only lead to collapse, and they still had much more to do. Confident in his strength, the woman reassured herself that Ceres would return soon after defeating Mammon. Just as expected, Ceres appeared. Standing tall amidst the rubble, he calmly confirmed the outcome. Mammon had been defeated. His return drew astonished reactions. The women gathered around him, disbelief painted across their faces. Ceres spoke casually, noting the bloodstains on her ribbon. He doubted they could be washed out. Gasps followed, as someone realized her arm had fully regenerated. Shock spread through the group. Few had ever witnessed such complete healing. Even she couldn't believe it was possible, with the battle over. Ceres suggested they talk after a short break. He had questions of his own, and everyone needed time to recover. Standing united, the women welcomed him back with warm smiles. Their gratitude, admiration, and affection were all directed toward the man who had saved them again. Ceres returned the sentiment with a calm smile, simple yet meaningful. His words made it clear he considered this place home. Plans were quickly laid out. The group decided to regroup with the others and return to the royal capital, hoping for peace after chaos. Just as things began to settle, an awkward voice broke the silence. One boy hesitated, then finally addressed Ceres, acknowledging him not as a comrade, With smiles and renewed camaraderie, the former party extended an offer to Ceres. They asked him to rejoin their ranks, and one even jokingly asked if they could call him Papa. Ceres froze, face contorted in embarrassment. The entire exchange felt too awkward to process. Attempting to move past the awkwardness, Ceres tried to keep things casual. He asked to simply be called by name. But deep down, he felt like he was the only one suffering through this strange reunion. Then came a bold introduction. Cecilia, the former saint, stepped forward with a radiant smile. Ceres recognized the name. Cecilia had once fought the Demon King as part of the last hero party. Ceres struggled under pressure as Cecilia casually nudged him forward. He nervously introduced her as the one responsible for healing everyone. The girls sang Cecilia's praises with gleaming eyes, though their compliments ranged from heartfelt to hilariously blunt. Cecilia's smile twitched, clearly unimpressed with their commentary. She scolded them for their lack of tact. Moments later, she pulled Ceres aside. No more teasing or circling the issue this time. She spoke directly and with resolve. With an affectionate gaze and confident smile, Cecilia made her bold request. She asked Ceres to accept her not just into his party, but into his life as his fifth wife. With a soft smile, Cecilia leaned in, asking her question again. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were unwavering, awaiting Sarah's answer. Ceres hesitated, his thoughts raced, unsure how to respond. He already had more than 4 wives, and Princess Marianne was technically the 5th. To his surprise, Cecilia dismissed the concern without hesitation. With a calm expression, she told him it didn't matter, leaving Ceres stunned and confused. Cecilia began to explain her ties. Shizuko and Seiyo, both close to Ceres, had once been her mentors. She added that she also knew Misaki and Haruka. Their shared history made everything simpler. Ceres hesitated, overwhelmed by the sudden proposal. They had only just met, and the situation was escalating too fast. Cecilia smiled gently, revealing she had witnessed his battle with Mammon through a magical crystal. His overwhelming strength had deeply impressed her. With a blush, she pressed against him, declaring that her entire life's purpose may have been to meet him. Cecilia calmly delivered even more shocking news: she had the Pope's permission to marry him. Holding out a glowing orb, she confirmed the final step. The Pope's message was ready, and the light within it gleamed with approval. Her confidence never wavered. A grand vision of the Pope appeared, arms outstretched in divine proclamation. He named Ceres the true hero, and praised him as the most exalted figure of the age. Cecilia smiled softly as the message continued. Ceres would receive a noble title, lands surrounding Kohane's castle, and her hand in marriage, all bestowed by the Pope's will. Ceres was taken aback. He had expected to be treated as a monster due to his overwhelming power. Despite his reservations, he accepted the reward on one condition. Though power brought complications, he would move forward only with his existing wives' full support. Cecilia nodded with grace. She understood the condition perfectly. As they prepared to depart, the others chuckled about Cecilia's usual antics. Despite the chaos, she hadn't changed at all. Shizuko spoke seriously, asking Cecilia if she truly acted on her own will, rather than the church's. Still, they added a condition. If Ceres were to marry Cecilia, he must also consider his ties to other important women, namely Princess Marianne and Princess Frey. With a bright smile, Shizuko suggested the answer: marry all 3. Her tone was light, but the meaning was clear. Balance would be crucial moving forward. Cecilia and Ceres were both stunned. The logic was simple: choosing only one would hand the church too much influence. Shizuko clarified the political logic. If Ceres married all 3, no single nation would dominate him. She further explained that stability among the theocracy, the kingdom, and the empire was essential. Cecilia, flustered yet earnest, tried to cut through the politics. Her love for Ceres, she said, was genuine, no matter how strategic things looked. Ceres didn't like how quickly the situation was spiraling. With tension rising, he made a snap decision: he'd postpone the choice and delay his answer. Before anyone could stop him, he turned to run, claiming he needed to consult all 3 nations. He made a hasty exit, leaving a stunned Cecilia behind. Ceres launched into the sky with dragon wings, fleeing boldly while everyone watched in stunned disbelief and mild frustration. Everything spiraled out of control, forcing him to flee the chaos by air as fast as possible. Before leaving, he activated a crystal ball to inform others of his return to the capital. While approaching the forest, an unsettling presence caught his attention. Something powerful was already waiting. 2 figures appeared, one familiar, the other unknown. The man smiled, introducing the woman beside him. She was no ordinary companion, but a dragon royal, just like him, a blue dragon lord. Rather than hostility, The woman calmly acknowledged his transformation. He was no longer ordinary, he had become one of them. A dragon royal, and Lord recognition sparked a shift. Questions surfaced as he confronted the man about a strange curse. The other, clearly surprised, demanded an explanation. A confession followed. After an unintended fatal duel, the man had offered his liver as atonement. They discussed a mysterious monster he once met. Strangely, it radiated a dragon's presence. Unexpectedly, she mentioned her brief stay in the distant country of Balta. Her calm tone contrasted with his confusion. The decision had been spontaneous, unplanned. While there, she spent time in libraries, drawn to the nation's rare and valuable books. During her stay, a peculiar noble youth had taken interest in her, adding an odd twist to her tale. Demons struck while she was away, turning the country to ruins. Despite her cold demeanor, feelings had begun to grow for the noble who once pursued her. Upon returning, she learned only one princess had survived the massacre. Everyone else had perished before she could intervene. The streets were littered with corpses, buildings in ruins. She stood among the aftermath, taking in the devastation. Her anger surged. The urge to annihilate the demons surfaced, but rules forbade direct interference with the lower realm. Among the rubble, she found the boy's lifeless body. Overcome by emotion, she acted on impulse and offered him her liver, reviving him as something more. She stood before the boy, turned monster, haunted by the result of her own decision. Ending his life had never been an option. Regret lingered. Even after transforming him, she continued watching from afar, debating whether to relieve his suffering. Despite the pain, she offered a soft smile in gratitude. Ceres, realizing the past's weight, recognized the boy as yet another victim from Balta. Marianne's losses echoed in his mind: family, friends, a shattered kingdom. Her resilience amazed him, but he questioned his place amid her grief. She extended an offer: not for now, but someday. If the centuries wore him down, Dragonium, the dragon's realm, would welcome him. The revelation struck him. Life among dragon lords meant centuries, maybe thousands of years of immortality. They were revered like gods. A vision of the women he cherished flashed before him. The thought of outliving them all left him overwhelmed. Curious and uneasy, he asked about Dragonium. They explained that only those with the instincts of a dragon could reach it. They hadn't come just to talk. Their purpose was clear. They wanted to determine what kind of dragon lord he would become. Each held a distinct color, each with different powers. Transformation was inevitable. When his dragon form awakened, the truth would reveal itself. Until then, he accepted their intent with a quiet nod. A massive dragon appeared before them, its overwhelming presence silencing everyone. Faces stiffened in awe and disbelief. They soon identified him as a yellow dragon. His fate, they claimed, was a life filled with boredom and peace. Concerned, he asked if that meant rejection. On the contrary, yellow dragons were symbols of fortune, beloved by all, and bringers of good luck. Ceres listened, as she prepared to share the unshakable laws of dragons. Ones no dragon lord could break. The sacred commandments echoed: never destroy the world, never battle fellow dragon lords, love all dragons, and uphold these rules above all else. She smiled. But her warning was clear: violating the dragon rules would bring consequences. Her eyes revealed no warmth. With their message delivered, the two dragons departed into the sky, leaving him grounded in thought. Alone again, he turned toward the castle. Something remained unfinished. Someone important was waiting. Inside the grand halls, a woman reflected on the past decade. Disaster had nearly struck once more, but Ceres had saved them all. Hope still filled her heart. 10 years had passed, yet she remembered the promise he would return for her. She stood silently before a portrait, whispering to her late husband, hoping she could find happiness again. A knock startled her. Outside the window, wings spread wide, Ceres waited, just as he promised. He landed gently on the balcony, apologizing for his delay. Her surprised voice called out his name with emotion. Though he joked about avoiding a dramatic entrance, his true reason was simple: he came to see her. Blushing, she struggled to find the right words. As night blanketed the city, she made a quiet plea. All she wanted now was to ask for one selfish wish. He carried her through the night sky, arms wrapped gently around her as they soared above the rooftops. Doubt crossed his mind, but she reassured him. Ceres, now revered beyond royalty, had nothing to fear. Waves brushed the shore. She longed for a quiet place, one where only they could exist. They walked slowly along the moonlit beach. Sand softened each step, while silence filled the space between them. Joy lit her face. For the first time, she experienced the beach shared with the one she'd waited for. He mentioned how far the royal capital felt by carriage, but her smile made it clear his wings made the journey short and special. A moment later, he looked down, admitting what weighed on him most. He was no longer human. Fingers gently entwined, and he confessed something deeper. he doubted he could ever have children. Despite his fears, she responded with warmth. To her, his heart mattered more than any form he took. With steady eyes, she promised support, Shizuko, the others, and she would always remain by his side. She praised his hands, hands that had saved many lives. Their warmth reminded her of his humanity. Thoughts stirred within him. Despite all the challenges ahead, alliances, heirs, and dragon politics, he realized he had been foolish to doubt. Under the moonlight, he held her close and kissed her. For once, the weight on his shoulders lifted. In that moment he felt truly understood. Emotion overwhelmed him. Awareness of what had begun to stir between them made his heart race with confusion and tension. He wondered if his transformation played a part in how things escalated. Proximity and longing clashed, creating a situation he hadn't prepared for. She addressed him with gentle hesitation. Realizing what she noticed, Ceres flushed, caught between surprise and panic. A sudden gesture escalated the awkwardness. In a flurry of nerves, she pulled back and apologized instinctively. He tried to explain, but she calmly reassured him. Her tone was soft, her expression kind. Rather than embarrassment, she expressed comfort. To her, his reaction only proved sincerity and affection. He hesitated as the atmosphere grew more charged. Though drawn to her, Ceres voiced concern about the timing and setting. Despite her royal status, she expressed vulnerability, reminding him that beyond titles she was still a woman. Lowering herself gently, she made a heartfelt request, hoping he would understand and respond with care. Under the quiet night sky, she approached him with clear intent and heartfelt sincerity. Her words carried emotion that reached deeper than expected, catching him off guard. A gentle kiss followed, neither rushed nor uncertain. Arms wrapped around each other, they closed the distance. Moments passed, and boundaries quietly shifted. He responded with care and growing confidence. Desire built steadily, though she believed herself the one meant to guide him. She found her role reversed. Wrapped tightly in his embrace, she surrendered to the moment. Movements synchronized naturally, their connection now undeniable. Clinging tightly to him, she felt her thoughts waver as warmth spread through her body. The closeness unsettled her resolve, yet her arms refused to loosen. Confusion and desire mixed quietly. Strength gathered as she pressed herself closer, her breathing uneven. Sensation overtook restraint, and instinct guided her movements. Above the dark sea, their figures drifted together through open air. Distance from the ground mirrored how far reality felt. Calm replaced urgency as the moment passed. Reflected in her softened expression was satisfaction, tempered by reflection. Leaning back against him, she allowed herself to rest. Comfort replaced tension, though uncertainty remained. He returned to the estate alone, offering a brief explanation. She listened calmly, surprised the others hadn't come back. Her tone shifted as realization dawned. With a quiet smile, she acknowledged that today belonged to just the two of them. She turned away without much fuss. Curiosity flickered in his voice, but she asked him to wait, leaving him briefly in thought. Reappearing with a changed appearance, she invited him forward. Her attire was different, catching him off guard for a moment. They walked through town together under the evening lights. Though unexpected, their time alone seemed natural. While walking through the night city, he asked if she had a destination in mind. Her simple joy in the outing sparked an idea for something more exciting. At her enthusiastic suggestion, they made their way to the nearest casino. Bright lights and elegant decor welcomed them with overwhelming grandeur. She stood still for a moment, taking in the surroundings. Visiting such a place had always been her wish, though past restrictions had kept her away. Seated together at a table, she nervously examined the cards in her hands. With a cheerful expression, she admitted her quick loss. Her carefree attitude surprised him, especially considering her status. She smiled brightly, satisfied with the evening's events. Despite her earlier loss, her spirits remained high. Encouraged by her, he approached the roulette table. A past remark about his luck echoed in his thoughts. He placed a bet on 0 without hesitation. On the first spin, the result stunned them, an incredible win. Still calm, he declared he would repeat the same risky bet. The dealer praised his fortune without hiding surprise. A second win followed instantly. Coins piled high, and the dealer stared in disbelief. She could only gasp. After his major win, he decided not to press his luck. The dealer, however, had other plans and boldly challenged him to stay and play. He agreed under one condition: to place everything on 0. She accepted without hesitation, unaware of a hidden trick in the machine. As the wheel spun, tension grew. Against expectations, the result landed on 0 again. Stunning everyone around the table, she collapsed at the table, unable to process the outcome. The total winnings shocked her further, as they now rivaled the value of land. Desperate for redemption, She begged for one more chance. Calmly he reminded her of the stakes, questioning if she could handle the cost. The total earnings reached an unbelievable amount, shocking the dealer into panic. She couldn't believe the sum exceeded the value of the entire casino. News of the result spread quickly. Even nobles and royalty were stunned, acknowledging it was beyond their reach. With no answer for the situation, the dealer weakly redirected them to speak with the casino's owner instead. The owner introduced himself calmly. Questions about the missing dealer were met with vague concern, raising silent suspicion. Shortly after, they found her unconscious and restrained. The owner revealed she had acted without approval, distancing the establishment from her reckless decision. Ceres pointed out the exact amount he was owed, but the owner only presented part of the total. The owner explained that large bets required prior approval. He shifted blame to the dealer, and claimed she would bear the full punishment. Realizing how serious the matter had become, Ceres offered to settle things with money if absolutely necessary. Instead of calming the situation, the owner revealed a darker intention. The captured woman now faced the threat of permanent removal. Suspicion grew, the explanation felt forced. Both Ceres and his companion questioned the legality and fairness of the casino's actions. Stepping forward, Marianne confronted the owner with calm authority. She questioned whether the casino's rules held more weight than national law. The owner grew pale as realization struck. Recognizing her identity, he stammered an apology, unable to defend his position. Rather than punish him directly, she offered a proposal. Taking over the casino would require effort, but it was possible. With Ceres's agreement, she suggested splitting control and profits. The owner, seeing no alternative, accepted without resistance. Later, as the city returned to peace, someone called out to both Ceres and Marianne, signaling that a new chapter was about to begin. Sharon enthusiastically pledged herself to their service, unaware she was intruding on their personal time together, despite the success. Ceres felt no joy. Wealth and admiration surrounded him, yet none of it matched what he truly desired. From the outside, it might appear like he achieved everything, but deep down, the emptiness lingered. With dragon wings extended, he quietly carried Marianne into the night. Her presence brought calm, though questions still filled his mind. Once they landed, she softly acknowledged his fortune. In her eyes, he had gained much more than he realized. Marianne hesitated, wondering if she had overstayed her welcome, yet Ceres reassured her that he had enjoyed the time. As they considered leaving, nearby guards raised concern. Attention on the princess was growing, prompting them to stay cautious. She leaned closer and softly asked for a short break. The long walk had left her weary, especially in unfamiliar shoes. Later, steam filled the air as silence settled between them. Ceres understood her intent without needing direct words. Now alone, Marianne stood confidently. Ceres, aware of their solitude, began to wonder what would come next. Late at night, clothes lay scattered across the floor, while two figures moved closely under dim light. Moments grew more intense, their bodies reacting instinctively to each other's presence. Her expression shifted from hesitation to vulnerability, giving in to emotions once buried deep. Outside, the world faded into silence. With rising urgency, their embrace deepened. Each movement reflected trust earned through pain and shared solitude. In the quiet that followed, she smiled softly. Her eyes shimmered, not from tension but relief. Morning light spilled across the sheets. As he stirred awake, a sudden interruption shattered the stillness. After an unexpected arrival, the group of women entered the room, exchanging casual remarks as tension lingered. Ceres tried to take responsibility, stepping forward with quiet resolve. Marianne, however, calmly redirected the blame, diffusing any rising conflict with gentle composure. The air slowly shifted from confrontation to reluctant acceptance. An awkward silence followed, broken by a shared glance between Ceres and the young man. Though fatigued, he remained composed. Without further comment, the women turned and exited the room. Their destination was clear time to clean up and reset. By the next day, weariness had settled in. While lounging, the women reflected on the surprising energy he had shown throughout. The atmosphere shifted from playful to teasing as the group gathered. Ceres, flustered and overwhelmed, endured their amused glances. Elsewhere, he stood quietly by the window, sipping his drink. The peace of the morning offered a rare sense of clarity after the chaos of the previous night. Contentment settled in. Surrounded by loyal companions, he reflected on the unexpected life he now led. United and confident, each woman stood by his side. Their connection to him, once uncertain, had now become unmistakably solid. Sudden footsteps disrupted the calm. The door creaked open. From the shadows emerged unwelcome guests, bringing new tension to the morning's peace. Old comrades arrived unexpectedly, demanding Ceres' return. Their voices echoed across the room. Luck froze mid-sip, startled by tension. After escorting Princess Marianne home, Zek departed peacefully, unaware her gentle farewell concealed growing jealousy toward the happiness he had found elsewhere. Inside the mansion, Marianne criticized Zek's decision to leave her, revealing lingering resentment because he chose another woman over his own family. Meanwhile, Elise confronted Alpina and demanded Ceres's return, but Alpina firmly refused to treat him as someone they could simply reclaim. Elise accused Alpina of acting selfishly before challenging her to explain why Ceres should remain there instead. Unable to answer basic household questions, Alpina stood speechless while Elise used her silence to strengthen the argument against her. Confidently, Alpina reminded Elise that adventurers should handle everyday responsibilities themselves instead of depending completely on Ceres for everything. Rather than backing down, Mel criticized Alpina's relationship with Ceres, accusing her of pursuing feelings that crossed acceptable family boundaries. Calmly, Alpina exposed Mel's hypocrisy by reminding everyone she abandoned Ceres after choosing Zekt, leaving her without the right to complain. Furious at those words, Mel argued with Alpina, and their heated confrontation quickly turned into a direct exchange of mutual accusations. Finally, Marianne proudly revealed Ceres had once given her an engagement necklace, hoping the surprising claim would strengthen her position. Alpina reminded Marianne that her relationship with Ceres had already ended after she neglected him and ultimately drove him away herself. Meanwhile, Ceres reassured Zekt he no longer needed saving, encouraging him to live freely without depending on anyone else's support. Smiling calmly, Ceres declared Zekt had lost the courage he once possessed and insisted the hero should continue his journey independently. Back at the mansion, Alpeni explained the four-rank adventurers could easily replace Ceres for ordinary tasks during their mission. Finally, Ceres accepted their decision without resentment, hoping everyone could find happiness while continuing their own chosen paths together. Accepting reality, Zekt admitted Ceres would never return, believing nothing remained to prevent him from rebuilding his desired harem party. Meanwhile, Ceres explained the three women could no longer fight after suffering severe trauma during previous battles against powerful dragons and Maimon. Instead, Ceres urged Zekt to accept responsibility for the women he claimed to love and provide for them from then onward. Unconvinced, Zekt argued many famous heroes traveled with multiple wives, insisting his situation was neither unusual nor unreasonable. Zekt exposed his true feelings by rejecting the three women completely, leaving everyone shocked by his heartless confession. Coldly discarded the three women, declaring they were nothing more than burdens, and ordering Ceres to take responsibility for them instead. Laughing arrogantly, Zekt reached toward one woman without respect, but his reckless behavior immediately provoked anger from everyone watching the confrontation. Without hesitation, one of the women struck Zekt repeatedly, forcing him backward as the punishment reflected his disgraceful actions. Meanwhile, Ceres watched silently while another woman joined the retaliation, condemning Zekt for his selfish upbringing and shameless conduct. Finally, Marianne denounced her own son, criticizing his habit of ignoring others' feelings and thinking only about satisfying himself. One woman allowed Zekt to leave peacefully, but only after demanding he completely sever every remaining connection with their group. Cornered by the condition, Zekt admitted he intended to abandon the three women anyway, if Ceres had refused to accept them. Meanwhile, Lyda confessed she still loved swordsmanship but no longer wished to risk her life in dangerous battles after everything she experienced. Nearby, the other women reflected on their own futures, quietly considering whether they also wanted to leave the battlefield behind. Shizuko stopped the growing tension, reminding everyone that Maria shared responsibility and insisting they should not completely cut ties. At last, Maria thanked Zekt sincerely before admitting she no longer wished to remain by his side, bringing their relationship to a peaceful end. Reluctantly, Zekt accepted everyone's decision and agreed to withdraw his demand to cut ties, leaving the matter in their hands. Before departing, Ceres invited Zekt to share a drink someday, allowing both former companions to separate without lingering hostility. Smiling faintly, Zekt bid farewell and walked away alone, while Ceres and the others quietly watched his departure from the mansion. After everything settled, Ceres suggested taking a short break, giving everyone time to recover from the exhausting confrontation. Meanwhile, the women agreed to postpone discussing their future plans, deciding everyone needed time to recover before making important decisions together. Soon afterward, Lyda approached Ceres, drawing everyone's attention as she prepared to ask him something completely unexpected. Instead of discussing recent events, Lyda innocently asked about their fathers, leaving Ceres confused by the sudden change of topic. Patiently, Ceres explained Kaito and Shuto remained in the village, while Kazuma had opened a restaurant in the royal capital. Smiling brightly, Lyda invited Ceres to accompany her on a trip because she wanted to investigate a clue she had recently discovered. Following Lyda's suggestion, she and Ceres visited Kazuma's restaurant, where the busy owner quickly noticed their unexpected arrival. Recognizing both visitors immediately, Kazuma warmly welcomed them before curiously asking what had brought Ceres and Lyda there together. Suddenly, Kazuma misunderstood the situation, assuming Ceres intended to pursue Haruka while also trying to win Lyda's affection. After hearing their explanation, Kazuma advised Lyda to retire from adventuring, then called Mary, because he had another idea to discuss. Ceres quietly apologized in advance as Lyda looked confused, wondering why Kazuma suddenly wanted to introduce someone new. Kazuma introduced Mary to Lyda with a joke, calling her Lyda's new mother, leaving both women surprised by the unexpected introduction. Confused, Mary and Lyda stared at each other before noticing their similar appearance, making the awkward meeting even more surprising. Meanwhile, Lyda questioned why Mary looked almost the same age as her, while Ceres quietly watched the unusual family reunion unfold. Soon afterward, Kazuma openly displayed his affection for Mary, proudly showing their loving relationship as Lyda observed the scene in disbelief. Finally, while Ceres praised his brother's hard work, despite still admiring his own cooking skills. As Ceres prepared to leave, Kazuma stopped him, hoping his younger brother could help with one final request before returning home. Desperately, Kazuma and Mary asked Ceres to promote their restaurant by writing that the hero highly recommended their establishment. Although embarrassed by the request, Ceres accepted after Kazuma explained that attracting famous adventurers would help the struggling restaurant survive. Excited by Ceres' agreement, Kazuma celebrated with Mary, believing the endorsement would finally bring more customers through their doors. After saying goodbye, Ceres returned home, where Maria welcomed him back and invited him to continue the conversation they had postponed earlier. Lyda suddenly hugged Alpina, leaving everyone confused while Alpina wondered why her daughter acted so emotionally. Meanwhile, Maria gathered the women together and asked them what they truly wanted to do with their futures from that point onward. Unexpectedly, the group proposed becoming Ceres' lovers instead, even suggesting he could become a new father figure for their unusual family. Hearing that outrageous proposal, Maria, Marianne, and Alpena stared at the girls with stern expressions, clearly displeased by the reckless suggestion. Three mothers confronted their daughters together, warning them not to compete with their own mothers for Ceres' affection. Maria stopped the argument and reminded everyone that Ceres never wanted such a complicated relationship with any of them. Then, Maria realized the three girls simply wished to live peacefully beside Ceres after losing direction in their own lives. However, Maria pointed out that Ceres was unlikely to choose any of them while they remained dependent on others for everything. Meanwhile, Marianne and Alpena admitted their parenting had been flawed, deciding the girls first needed practical skills before thinking about romance. They froze in disbelief after learning their mother's plan to personally teach them basic household responsibilities from then on. Faced with Ceres' advice, the three girls realized they needed jobs and practical household skills before pursuing the future they truly desired. After listening carefully, Ceres promised to consider their feelings someday, but only after they matured and understood genuine love and responsibility. Finally, Maria, Marianne, and Alpena announced they would personally give the girls intensive bride training, determined to prepare them for independent lives.